by Sploosh, and we're currently going to be discussing card reviews for Cards, the World War II collectible card game. We're going to be reviewing the German card pool first, and we're going to be talking about how these cards fit both into constructed and draft play. But first, a brief intro. I'm Tower Number Nine. I used to play Netrunner. I played a little bit of Magic, though not that competitively. But I played Netrunner competitively. I played Conquest competitively, and I played L5R competitively for some time. Now I've been playing cards, though I also sometimes played miniatures games, in particular Star Wars Legion. That's a game that I quite enjoy. Sploosh, you want to do a quick intro for yourself?
Sure, I started with competitive video games. I went from there to competitive Magic the Gathering, where I had a very high win rate in competitive play. I got Legend in Hearthstone, another card game. I also we met playing miniatures in Legion, where both of us were very highly rated in League play. Let's see, and then started playing this game. And X-Wing. X-Wing's miniatures game as well. I had a lot of success in tournament play. That's pretty much. And then we started this game around mid-December, just slightly around the 12th or so. I did anyway. Both of
Yeah, near
us.
the end of the last season, I actually joined this game. This is gonna sound so silly, but I actually joined this game because of a Facebook ad that I saw, and I was like, okay, I guess I'll check it out. So
Wow.
I checked it out, and it turned out to be a game that I really enjoyed. So here we are.
And I joined because you told me about it.
Yeah, I had streamed just some basic gameplay early on, and a few friends from other communities got excited about it and joined in. Okay, so here we are.
Oh, and by the way, we're also both top 5 in the game right now in our first league. I don't know what they call it, season.
Yeah, the first full season, we are both currently in the top five. If we click on the profile here, we should get the rankings. Yeah, so I am currently second, and Sploosh is currently fifth here. And I want to add obvious caveat. This is very early in the season. These rankings could change a lot. Um, it is what it is. I'm not saying that I'm an expert. There are a lot of people who are probably better at this game than I am, like people who have been veterans from previous seasons. But I'm at least doing fairly well for myself. I have field marshal all factions. I fairly frequently win drafts.
Yeah,
All
same.
right. And Sploosh, you're field marshal four factions, but one of them is Germany. Is that correct? Yeah, you just don't have the U.S.
No, actually, I
Or no,
didn't
you just don't have
bother.
Germany.
So I didn't. Well, we could get into our feelings on Germany in general, but it's my first time trying to win. I had field marshal last season, but mostly just because I was goofing around. But now that I actually want to have a high win rate, I just didn't feel like it was worth the effort.
That's fair, but you play Germany a fair bit in draft. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would say that Germany and US have become my favorite go-to factions, and I also played a bunch of drafts recently just to kind of keep myself feeling confident in this discussion. Because today we're going to talk about just Germany, and probably do the other ones later. So, yeah, I've been very successful with Germany. I don't
Okay.
know. Well, I just say that personally, I don't find like a I don't I think Germany might be the worst faction in constructed, but that's not like to say it's bad. It's actually there's like probably at least 3 good Germany decks right now in constructed, but I think that there's other decks that are just a little bit better than they are, and I don't find the decks that are good very enjoyable to play personally. But that doesn't mean they're bad. It's just
Yeah,
do
once
you
again, I'll
disagree?
say that I think that German Blitz is not terrible, but I think that the currently Japan aggro decks do a similar thing better.
Yes, and we could talk about the archetypes if we really want to. But do you find that that's correct, or do you feel there's a different balance there?
I don't have a great sense of where everything is, quite frankly.
Sure. Yeah,
So
and it comes down to how many
we'll
decks
have
we
to we'll have
played.
to see how the meta evolves. Especially there have been these new changes just very recently, and it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. Uh,
Okay,
do
so
you
let's
real quick though? Do you agree about draft? Do you find it to be strong in draft? I think they're one of the best in draft.
I think Germans are quite strong in draft. You have some good value units, you have some good early units, you have some good late units, you have some removal, which is always very strong to have in draft.
Yep. They're also a great secondary faction in draft because they do so much. And
Yeah, they got some supplemental card draw even.
yep. I was thinking on my way home today about this and what we would say, and Germany might be the most flexible faction. It's got a little of everything. They've got some frontline strategies. They've got control strategies. They got good removal. Their units can be both aggro, mid range, and a little control. Like there's a lot going on with Germany.
Yeah.
So
All right,
yeah,
let's get to some of the reviews.
sure.
What do you now? How do you want to approach this? Do you want to talk about rarity, or do you want to talk just go by cost, which is kind of the default? Like, what are you thinking for that?
I'm thinking let's go from 0 up.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So the very first German card is Rush Production. Let's get that highlighted on the screen here. Technically, the first German card is Tripoli, but the HQs don't do anything right now. You know, maybe they're going to change that later. It looks like they're kind of giving themselves that design space, but at least for right now, HQs don't do anything. So, rush production here. When you deploy a unit this turn, deal 1 damage to it and gain 1 credit. And this is a common basic card. So you can have up to 4 copies of this in your deck. What do you think about this unit? What do you think about this card?
Well, I'd like to use a rating system, and I do think that in Constructed there is a deck currently using this card. It's one of those cards that's either bad or broken, and someone broke it because it has a combo with, you were mentioning the name of the deck earlier, but
Yeah. People talk about this. I don't know why it's called this, but people call this the baby combo. So this is the combo where you're going to use this to immediately kill light infantry that you're playing. And then you're using I forget what the exact number is, but the autocannon that deals 1 damage when you play a unit. And you're using this to make it so that your guys die when you play them so that you can play more of them.
and basically,
also so
yeah.
you get your money back. So basically, it's a combo that can do a large amount of damage with really limited recourse.
No,
And
no,
in fact,
yeah.
if you do it right, you can just kill your opponent outright.
It's almost impossible to counter. It's basically like a solitaire victory, but
I would say it's impossible to. I mean, like there's stuff you can do. You can just kill them before they do it.
No, but I'm saying once they go off, you are just watching.
Yeah, that's true. If they get the whole thing set up, they just kill you in 1 turn without you having a chance to really interact with it.
So in Constructed, I would say it's like an average to good card in that one deck, but otherwise I would rate it as like a 1 as unplayable. And then in draft I feel the same. It's like a 1. Do you disagree?
Yeah, so I think this card is awful by default because the effect that it gives you is just not really that good. Usually this is not a strong effect at all. So even on a card that costs 0, it kind of gives you card disadvantage.
Right.
But in a deck that has a combo set up, this is a very important piece of that combo. So I would say for general play, I would give this card, like you were saying, like a 1 out of 5. This is really bad. Don't play it at all. I would certainly not want to draft this at all. But if you can get that combo set up, it can be really strong. So that's kind of what you have to consider as you're evaluating this card.
And I wouldn't attempt it in draft. I just, even if you first pick that cannon, I don't see any universe you're crazy enough to try to pull that off because there's a lot going on.
You should not try to get like complicated combos set up in draft. That's like in draft, the kind of combos you want are like 2 card synergies, not like
Sure.
Oh, if I build this deck entirely around this, I can maybe kill the opponent in 1 turn. That's not good drafting logic.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to say about that card. I don't know.
All right, let's move on. So our assessment of rush production is, in a combo, with the right combo, this can be a crucial card, so it's good there. Otherwise, do not play this card.
And even in that deck, I don't even know if they play 4 of them. I bet you they play like 3. So
I don't like combos, and I don't run that combo deck myself, so I'm not entirely sure.
yeah.
All right, let's check out the first infantry regiment. This is a 1 cost 0 operations infantry with 1/2 vanilla. What do you think about this guy?
In Constructed, I give it a 1. And in draft, a 1. Am I being harsh?
I think you're being too harsh. I think this guy. I don't think that. So I think a 1 is like cards that are like really truly unplayable trash.
I don't even know. So my rating for 2 is play it but not happy about it. and I don't even know if this card I avoid like the plague. Like, have you had good experiences with it ever?
Yeah.
Really? Well, maybe
Yeah,
I'm just not building that deck.
I think that it can be a so like kind of a bread and butter thing that I was doing early on when I was playing this game would be playing this card turn 1 and then turn 2 playing the Panzer that gets blitz if you have an infantry. And there are better
Oh,
infantry to play
okay.
on turn 1, but this card is like serviceable.
And there's the tank that gives +1 to a non-tank unit that costs 1. So,
Yeah, plus this can be an enabler for things like it can be an extra unit type. It's a very cheap infantry, so you can use if you have like I think it's called joint operations or some of the other cards that are based on how many unit types this guy can do that. I would say this guy is like I would say this guy is more like a 2.
in
And I
draft.
would probably give him the I would say in draft he might even be a 3. This guy is like
Really?
he's
Wow.
not he's not a shockingly good card, but he has a role to play. Additionally, I feel like in this game having 1-drops is in my opinion very important, especially in draft. I feel like if you're off your curve in this game, it's very, very negative. And the reason that I say that is because if you go first in particular and you don't have a turn 1 play, that's a big setback.
Hmm.
Um,
Interesting. But in constructed, you think he's 1, right? Because even
in
the aggro
constructed,
deck doesn't play
the
him.
problem with this guy in constructed is that you can get a better card from your allies. So like if you were to compare this to a like you can even get better 1-cost 0 operations units. I would say that
Yeah,
the
there's that
Soviet naval
car.
infantry, which is one cost 0 ops for 3-1, is better. The Japanese one with 1-cost 2-1 blitz is certainly better. The 34th infantry, which is the broken Japanese one that's 1-cost 0 ops 2-3, but you mill your top card, that one is wildly better. So in constructed, I wouldn't say this is a very strong card, but it's possible it would work well with a certain alliance combo where there just isn't a better 1-cost infantry. Like I don't know. I
Mm.
think I would debatably run this over the US 1-cost 1-3. I'm not entirely sure though.
Well, there is an aggro deck that's basically little 1-cost and 2-cost minions that is very good and constructed, and it's beat me once or twice with a few decks. And that deck is running the 2-drop 1/2 blitz vehicle because the vehicle for 0 can instantly go from backline to attacking for 0.
Yeah, that one being a tank is important, but
Yes.
let's get to that one when we get to it.
Sure, I'm just saying in its own faction there's a unit that's just better. And there's other ones as well. I mean, I could keep naming, but I think in like a kind of budget sort of aggro deck, I guess I could see it as like maybe a 2, but like if you're really pushing the limits of the faction, I just don't see it as like a great card.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's fair. That's fair.
yeah,
All right, let's
yeah.
move on to the 158. Fair warning, I do not speak German, so we're not going to have some good pronunciations here. But we'll try it for comedy value. The 158 Nachschub. I don't know.
I'll take it. Yeah.
All right, so this unit, it's a 1-cost. It has 4 operations, which you're not going to want to do anything with this unit other than just stand there most of the time. It's 0-4 with smoke screen, so it can't be attacked until it's moved or attacked. But you gain 2 credits when a friendly unit destroys a unit during your turn. What do you think about this guy? This is also elite rarity, and you can only have 1 in your deck.
And it's tough to get, so it's hard to ever. I have played it with it in draft, I think like 1 time, but then I didn't draw it many times. I'm gonna give it like a good, I guess, a 4. And then even in constructed, I think it could get a 4 as well because I have seen people play it against me and it's done some work.
Yeah, so one thing to note in this game is that elite cards are generally just stronger than other cards overall.
Yeah, yeah.
Like rarity sort of like in Magic sometimes rarity is better than and sometimes it isn't. In this game rarity is very often better than. Like there's units that are just like objectively better versions of other cards that are higher rarity. And this whole cycle of 1-cost 0-4s that have smokescreen and a strong passive ability, I think basically all the cards in that cycle are good. Would you agree with me on that?
I'm struggling to think of the bad one. Japan's good, US is good. No, yeah, they're all good, right?
Yeah.
So,
This
yeah.
one is actually one of the more difficult ones to make work because it sort of necessitates that things go in a certain way.
I think it's an aggro deck card. I don't think you
Yeah, so
play
like
it.
with this, what you want to be using this for is with that blitz deck that I was talking about earlier, where you're playing very aggressively. This guy is gonna let you, get your kills or trades, and then get money that's gonna let you keep up the pressure by playing other units, especially if you use units with low operations cost. So like if like you were discussing earlier, the one that's a 2 cost 1/2 with 0 ops, if
Yeah.
you use that card and kill an enemy, you spent 0 ops on that, and you got 2 credits back, so it was actually free. And then you can keep playing more stuff. And the theory behind that deck is you're going to play out as much of your hand as possible with these things that accelerate your credit income. And then you're going to play Enigma to draw cards until you have the same number of cards as your opponent, and then do it all over again. And that's a pretty good, that's a
Mm.
pretty solid way to do it. Additionally, even when you're not doing like a big combo or big like set piece plan with this guy, he's still actually pretty good because he can sometimes just give you that extra bit of income that you need to set something up. Then, furthermore, because Germany does have those effects, like I mentioned earlier, that are going to be based on the number of unit types that you have, this guy is often not going to be killed very quickly, given that he has a lot of health and he has smoke screen and is probably just going to stay in the back line. And for that reason, he can kind of be an enabler for some of your other effects also. So I would say this guy is quite strong. I would give him. I do think he's a little bit better in constructed than he is in draft, because you do have more of an opportunity to set up those decks with like
With
lots
Enigma.
of low cost guys and the Enigma and stuff
Right.
like that.
Um,
So I would give. Sorry, go ahead.
well, this card is reminding me of something about the faction identity. This card is strictly for offense. If it's bad if you're being attacked, and
Yeah, that's a good point. This only works when a unit destroys a unit during your turn. So if you're on the defensive, this card can actually be pretty weak. Though if you're using blitz units, of course, you can attack even if you are being pushed back.
sure, yeah. Well, you're trying to turn the into the aggressor, but even their removal when we get to it, I found fascinating. When I was thinking about the faction, that a lot of the removal is aggressive. Like their best removal spell later on, it's only backline. It's not. It's bad if you're trying to use it in the front line because
Yeah, that's true.
you're trying to be a. I mean, it's obviously it's Germany, it's Blitzkrieg. They're an aggressor, and this card is promoting that aggressive style.
And that's actually one of the things that I like about this game. You get a little bit of like that you do kind of feel the like background and the like war history aspect of
Yeah,
this game when you're looking at these
you get
cards.
the
So like
flavor.
Germany, they have like Blitzkrieg. They're trying to gain an advantage early and then really press that advantage while the opponent's on the back foot. And cards like this help them by making it easier to do these big coordinated attacks.
Absolutely, yeah, and they're not a control list at all. Like they will lose the control battle to America, which is again thematic. I love the little flavor that they've put in this game. It's why I'm enjoying playing it beyond just a card game.
Okay, so let's move on to the 4th Pioneer Battalion. This unit is interesting. It is a 1 cost 1/3, and when you deploy it, it gives your friendly ground units on the front line +1 defense. It has 1 operations. What do you think about this guy?
Man, I think in constructed it's like a 1, and maybe I'm just super harsh with the ones, man. Um, but he's not an aggressor. He costs 1 to move forward. He's kind of a defensive card, but then he's bonuses for frontline, which is an aggressive style.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think the theory behind this is that this is a guy that you can play early, and if you draw him late, he'll buff your other guys. I have to say I don't like him though. Like I would rather play the other one that's a 1 cost 1/2 with no
mhm.
operations than I would play this guy.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Simply because if you play this guy on the first turn, now it's turn 2. If you use him, his operation cost means that you're not hitting a 2-drop on curve, whereas the other guy can at least move up while still allowing you to play another card. So I think this card's pretty weak, quite frankly. I don't think the ability is good enough for what you get.
I give it a 2 in draft, but I'm gonna just say it right now. If I draft this guy, I'm not happy. Like I'm
Yeah,
not.
that's fair.
That's
All right,
actually
not
yeah.
much needs to be said about this unit in my hands.
Let's move on, I guess.
All right, Adler Command Vehicle. This is a 1 cost 1/1 tank, so it can move and attack during the same turn. 1 operations cost. Your other tanks operate for 1 less, and it's an elite.
Man, I gotta tell you, when I got this guy in a pack, I got so excited because he makes the noise, and then I read what he does, and I was really bummed out. Like,
Yeah, so this card, it's good if you have a bunch of other tanks, but even then, it's not all that good as these sorts of things go.
I
I would much
yeah.
rather have the other one-cost support unit we were talking about earlier, the Naxlube or whatever.
Mm.
It's that one's much harder to kill. Its ability applies to all of your units instead of just one type. And I'm not saying this guy's terrible, but I am gonna say, he's not necessarily uh, as amazing as some elites.
To be honest with
Um,
you, I don't even know his purpose because he clearly is meant to be with like tanks that have a cost, but the aggro tank doesn't really have a cost if you play it correctly. The early drop tanks, I mean, they're one, but they have health and they do more things. Like I don't really get what this guy's trying to do. So when I got
well, this guy's for blitz. So like you're gonna play like let's say that you play the blitz tank that's like a 4-cost 4/5 or whatever.
okay, so
So
it's
you play
two,
that,
yeah,
and it has 2 operations cost. But with this guy, it only has 1 operations cost. So you can do like bold moves with it much more quickly.
yeah.
It is also characterful. I don't know if you guys are reading the little flavor text there on the side, but the art actually depicts a vehicle that was used by Erwin Rommel, who was well known for his bold maneuvers in the North African campaign.
Hmm.
Though one of the big problems with the North African campaign for the Germans was the huge logistical load and like problems that it caused for them in terms of their overall operations and logistics. So the fact that it makes your operation costs lower is maybe not entirely historically accurate, but I think this game is not supposed to reflect like really large scale operations and logistics most of the time, and this instead is meant to reflect like command and coordination, making your movements on the battlefield more efficient.
I I mean I don't even know where to rate this guy because I'm just gonna be honest that like maybe I don't get it, but and thematically I get the 1/1 stat, but that just seems too weak to me. I mean for the love of God, at least give it a 2/2. Like
I would say this guy. Well, I would say this guy is like a decent role player in a.
some
I'd
kind
say
of
this guy's a
aggro.
decent role player in constructed. I would not want to draft him unless I already knew that I had a ton of tanks.
Mm.
And even then, being a 1/1 without smokescreen or
Yeah,
any
yeah,
other
give him
protection,
smokescreen.
you are just gonna get nailed by bloody sickle and stuff.
If the devs ever listen to this or like, oh, what are these guys doing? Please give this thing smokescreen and maybe I'll consider it. But like the sickle's too popular and constructed, and in draft, I just did a quick look at all the German tanks, and honestly, none of the tanks even get me that excited for this thing until like the higher drop rate, and at that point, like I'm already dropping this big tank. This thing is not really like I don't feel like it's helping me, you know.
By the
So
way, I'm just gonna do a quick aside. We mentioned sickle. For those who might not know what we're talking about, this is not a German card. Bloody Sickle. This is. I think this might literally be the best card in the game. I consider it like insanely broken.
yeah,
So it's 0 cost. It does 1 damage to a ground unit and your HQ, and it draws a card. This card is insanely good. So the fact that it costs 0 means that you can kill things for free. So that's already great. Additionally, it draws a card back when you play it. That's huge. That's so good.
it's a
So like if
cantrip.
an opponent plays anything with 1 defense that's on the ground, you can play this, damage your HQ for 1, kill them, and you draw a card. So card advantage is really good.
It's
And
it's
card
more.
advantage,
It's more
but this
too.
card is card advantage. This card is removal. This card, you can even
It's
just play it to
tempo.
damage a unit and it still replaces itself. It's insane. This card is like 5 out of 5 or like a 6 out of 5 in both constructed and draft. I
It's
think it's broken.
S tier. It's tempo, card advantage, removal, which
Yeah,
we
it's so
so
good.
in even a control deck can play it because it's a cantrip. And if you've ever played it or a combo deck, if you play a control or a combo deck, just a cantrip is considered like the best strategy because you're getting through your deck.
Yeah,
You're
you draw your combo pieces.
right.
No, this card is insane. This is like, I know it's not a German card, but I think this is literally the best card in the game in my opinion.
Well, it's hard not to talk about any card in relation to that card. Like, for example, if this tank had 2 health, that would dramatically change its playability.
I also want to just say I think this card is like overtly broken. I think that I don't know what the. I think maybe one nerf that I would really like to see for it that wouldn't ruin the card completely would be only draw a card if you destroy the unit, similar to the American card Awoken Giant. Um,
Yeah, that's
Someone
smart.
was saying that would over nerf it earlier. Maybe that's true. You know, maybe you would want it to be able to hit air as well if that was the case. But I think the fact that the really dumb thing is I've had turns. You know, I play 4 of this in mini decks because of
Yeah.
how good it is.
Hmm.
I've had turns where I have 2 or 3 and I just play 3 of them on one unit and kill it and draw 3 cards and it's like okay,
So yeah,
like dumb. It's
you
insane.
you
Okay, back
still
to
got
the
all your advantages, but you cost him maybe 3 resources or something. You know.
all right, bloody sickle, like 6 out of 5 constructed antidotes. I mean, yeah.
So this guy is hampered.
Obrado,
Yeah.
AR 196, Reconnaissance Seaplane. 1 cost 1/2, 1 operations, counts as a fighter. If the enemy has more units on the battlefield, draw an order card from your deck.
I don't like
On
it.
deployment. What do you think about this guy?
I would. I'd probably give it a 2 in draft. A lot of times the game in draft will give you cards of similar rarity, and it's almost impossible that this is better than the other choices I have.
Yeah, I think most rares are going to be better than this.
Yeah. Even most whatever uncommons or whatever descript you would give. So I'm going to say 2 in draft and 1 in constructed.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think it's solid in theory. It has like a good. I
In
would
theory.
give it like a 2 or 3. I think it has a solid.
In draft or
It has a
what?
solid like comeback ability, and it's really good in some matchups. Like I think if the like Soviet decks that spam light infantry were popular, this would be like potentially quite a good card. But it's not like an ability that's always on or always. But I don't know. I think you're being harsh with it, man. Like, cause just like okay, let's say turn 1, I just play this and it's a 1/2 fighter. That's not awful. Like, it's not great.
I will
It's
confess.
not,
I
like,
played this
boom
card.
trash.
I'm sure you've played it in draft. I looked at it and I was like, card draw. I like card draw. And then what ends up happening is it's like super cheap, but like doesn't really do much itself. And then it costs a resource to attack with it, which I realize it might be busted if it had 0 activation or whatever. But
Yeah.
I don't feel like the 1 damage is worth the 1 resource I'm using, especially early game when like those first like 5 turns are super important. And then I try to like draw a card, and what ends up happening is me and my opponent are always like roughly parity. Where like and keep in mind it doesn't trigger until it's on the battlefield, so they kind of
True. If the opponent has 1 unit and if the opponent is up by 1 and you play this, the fact that it's on the field will make it so that you don't get the draw.
exactly. So it means they have to be 2 up on you.
One other little fact before we move on: the description here misspells finish. It says finish as in the game is finished, not finish as in Finland. And it is the Finnish as in Finland Air Force. So, little fun fact.
Do you disagree? I mean, did I convince you, or you still?
I don't. Maybe I'm just too generous with these.
I think so.
I don't know.
And maybe not all the cards can be good. I'm sorry.
We got Blackout here. 1 cost, pin target enemy air unit and draw a card. What do you think about this guy?
I'll give it a 2 in draft, and this is a nice like maybe a 3, but like so I avoid this card, but on like the bad, this is like I'm not as unhappy to play it because in draft most people are gonna play at least a little air, and it's a cantrip. So like in a draft deck you have good cards. In the word in Magic they'd call it a bomb, right? This card theoretically gets me closer to my bomb by playing it. And I do value that. And also, sometimes air units are just a real pain in the butt. Like, because if you have infantry in your back line, it takes 2 turns just to get them up to kill the plane. So this card will save me a lot. So I don't hate this card. I don't.
This card is pretty. I think this card's pretty like medium.
Yeah, I can't.
I like it more in draft than I like it in constructed.
I can't give it a 3 though.
I might play it like if I don't know, like this would be a really good sideboard card if this game had a sideboard.
Yes, but it doesn't, and sometimes they just don't draw or they don't play air, and there's some factions who just aren't very good at flying.
But
so
if it was like, I'm playing against British air or Russian air, let's sideboard this in to give me some early options. I would totally do that if this game had a sideboard, which it doesn't.
Right.
So I think this card's not very good. This card's not very good in constructed, unless you know air is really on meta right now. But in draft, I actually think it's pretty solid because it's much more likely that people will be playing like kind of unthemed, just like, oh, I have some air because that was the best card in this section things.
Yeah, I will
And
say, what's the card? Red Baron or something like that. The one that kills a guy and then lets you draw a card. I have played one of those in decks, and with great success. So the sort of like play a sideboard card is okay as like a one of, but this card isn't impactful enough to be that card. You
the
know?
other issue is if you could play this card without there being an enemy air unit, so it just draws you something,
Hmm.
that'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah, maybe, but you know what? Honestly, it might be too good if it said that. I
I
just
mean,
flat
yeah,
out.
cycle for one is certainly
Yeah.
not weak.
No, it'd be very strong, actually. And in the suggestions on Discord for new cards, I actually made a suggestion for a one drop that just cantrips and adds like a one turn extra resource, just to like make a guy spend one more resource to do something with their unit, but then just cantrip. And so this would be insane if you could just use it as a cantrip. But anyway, I you know I in draft it's playable. I'm not thrilled by playing it, but I also kind of like am okay, and it's won me games, this card. So
Yeah, I would say this is like a 3 in draft and like a 2 in constructed, maybe. The one thing I'd say about it in draft is that you don't want more than 2 of these.
sure, don't keep grabbing them, and they're a great tempo card. There are because it only costs one, you can do something pretty significant, and then also, oh, by the way, that unit it's not going to do anything,
Yeah.
and it costs you no cards to do it. So it's very solid. Not
Okay,
great.
let's move on to the next one.
Mm.
Careless Talk. This is a trap card, aka countermeasure.
Thought you meant real trap. That
One cost. When your enemy deploys a unit, deal 3 damage to it.
this is tricky. I want to say average good, like, and that's not a negative. In both constructed and draft, it's
Yeah, I think
possible
this
this
is
is
a
a four.
constructed.
Like
I would say this is like a uh,
in constructed, I'd say like for sure a three, but I could see an argument for good in draft.
the problem with this card is that it's possible to see your opponent priming a countermeasure if you look at how they move their cards in their hand.
Mm.
And because this is very commonly played, you can often get around it by like, oh, I'm going to play a unit. I know this guy may have enabled this, so I'm going to play a unit that isn't going to die to it in one shot.
Yep.
Or I'm going to play a unit that has an on-death effect that's going to be relevant, so the effect is going to go off anyway, or similar sorts of things. But
Yeah.
I think this is a solid card. It's by no means bad.
There's a rabbit hole that we don't have time for, but a lot of times what makes a card good is what removal exists in a game. And so 3 damage is like a traditional damage in this game. There, we don't need to list them all, but it's a thing, right? That there's 3 damage. That's what cards do. And then any card that does more than 3 damage is like a whole different thing, right? So a lot of what makes some units good is just having 4 health. And like you said, you can play around this card. There is situations though where you kind of can't play around it, because if you go first with this card, oh my gosh, like you're so happy. I love it when I go first with this card, because what are you gonna do?
Yeah, because it's like, how many 1-drops does someone have? Their choice is basically going to be to walk into it or to not play, and you might be bluffing. So you like, who's to say you even have it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. Like maybe people who play this game a lot more than us could explain like the mechanics in the game engine of how countermeasures work. Like there are ways, by the way, I feel like you can fake countermeasures, especially when you have like 6 resources, where you kind of like do something, countermeasure, do something else, and they kind of like, well, what did I see a countermeasure, or did I just see a card move?
Or someone's all tabbed, like they're checking
Sure.
Discord or something.
But do you feel like my rating is fair? Like, would you say this card is a 4 or 3 in draft, or am I being too generous to it?
No, I think that's fine. I'd probably give it a 3 in draft. I think it's solid.
Yeah, I enjoy picking this card. I don't go nuts over it, and I try not to have more than like 2, maybe 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at the next one. Combined arms, 1 cost. Give a friendly tank +1/+1 for each unit type you control. What do you think?
In constructed, I think it's played in that aggro deck.
I think this is a pretty strong card, actually, because like So let's say worst case scenario. This is 1 cost for +1/+1 on a tank. If you only have a tank and nothing else.
I'm glad you said that because I played this card many times, and sometimes I forget the tank itself counts. So I'm always counting like, oh, I have a bomber, I have an artillery, okay, +2. But then I forget, oh wow, where did I get the extra +1 from?
And let's be real, 1 cost +1/+1 is not trash. It's not
Mm-hmm.
good,
Yeah.
but it's not trash. And there's the potential upside to be much stronger. Like, people play the one that's a 0 cost that gives the US one that's a tank or infantry +1/+1.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, that's 0 instead of 1, and yes, it works on infantry. But this card is like, you know, in the worst case, it's a somewhat worse version of a card that does see play, and in the best case, it's really good.
Yeah, do I go 4 with this card? I don't know. I could say 3 for sure.
I'd say probably a 3 in draft, maybe a 4 in constructed if you have something really built around it with like Fury tanks and stuff.
Yeah, there's these natural aggro decks people are playing. I'm pretty sure it has a couple of these in it.
It can be strong. It can be strong.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Dive bombing. 1 cost. Give an enemy unit -2 attack and -1 defense until the start of your next turn.
I'm gonna give it 2, but don't overread that. Keep in mind, 2 is play it, but you're just not happy about it. I don't love this card. It's possible though I'm a little mean to it because sometimes people use it against me, and I'm like, huh, okay, that's kind of dirty. I don't know. It's like a soft removal, right?
Yeah, so it's like by default it's sort of a bad removal, but it also has that -2 attack effect, which you can sometimes use to set up like favorable trades, or just like my guy doesn't die and yours does, and that type of stuff.
Right, and so in that respect, the card doesn't really cost 1. Because most likely your resources are being used also to use a unit to allow the other unit to die. You know?
Yeah, that's the problem that I have with this card. Really, you have to kind of ask yourself, okay, I'm gonna play dive bombing, and then I'm gonna do another attack, and it's like, let's say that cost you 1, and the operation cost for the attack was 1. Even if you didn't take any damage in that attack, would it have been better to play a different removal card that costs 2?
No.
Like, a lot of the time, I think it would have.
Probably, and that's why.
But there is some flexibility here. You know, it's not totally bad. You do gain some flexibility advantages.
Yeah, it makes you feel smart when you use this card well. For example, the card says until your turn comes back, right?
Yeah.
So
so it does debuff them for their own turn.
Yeah.
So that if they're gonna attack you, it's less effective.
And you can win a damage race with this card. I've had that happen. Where
I would say this is something like I personally don't like this that much in constructed. I think there are other better German removal options. So
yeah.
I'd give this maybe like a 2 in constructed, but a 3 in draft, because like it can be good. It can be good just to have as a removal in draft. You know, it has that extra flexibility if you can set up something really cool.
Yeah, I'd probably pick other things over it, so 3's generous, but I'm not gonna like I don't disagree that it's hovering in that range of 2 to 3.
I'm not gonna scorn it. I'm not gonna call it trash.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the next one. Fast Heinz. This is, of course, after Heinz Guderian, who was an expert. He was a German commander. He was considered very good in the field of tank attacks. Ultimately, he was not that successful on the Eastern Front, though he wrote some. He wrote a biography and like memoir or whatever, autobiography that discusses some of the things that happened.
I wonder if I have that book actually.
He had some criticisms of the German leadership.
Yeah.
In any case, in this game, this is an elite card. It's an operation, cost 1. Give your German tanks +2/+1.
I don't know, man. I wouldn't play it in constructed personally.
This card is actually sick in constructed, but it's bad in draft, in my opinion.
I mean, we just.
How many German tanks are you even gonna get? It's not reliable.
But we just talked about how.
Like a blitz deck, and it's been sick.
Yeah, we just mentioned though +1/+1's not terrible, and this is +2/+1.
Yeah.
It's so going back to my theory though that like this is one of the rare. It's the rarest rarity in the game, so most likely there's another rarity you'd rather have. Like like in comparison with other contenders, there's probably.
I do think this is quite bad in draft.
Yeah. I wouldn't. I'd probably take it if I just felt like there was no other choice. I guess, but.
Or if I had a bunch of German tanks already. But
yeah.
In constructed, this can be sick though. Like we were saying earlier, 1 for +1/+1 on attack isn't terrible. This is like 1 for +2/+1 on attack, which is better. Uh, the upside of the other one is that if you have a bunch of unit types, you can scale way higher. The upside of this one is if you have a bunch of units in play, they all get buffed. I think this is quite strong.
Yeah, well, you're gonna rate it like a 4 or 3?
The thing is, it's kind of narrow. You know, you have to be playing a bunch of German tanks for this to be really all that good. I would give this like a 3 or 4 in constructed, and probably like a
Sure.
2 in draft actually, because it's unlikely to be. So
Sure.
I mean, the fact that it's only German tanks actually is a big
Mm,
issue.
good
that
point.
The previous combined arms one doesn't have.
It's probably fair for balance, though.
Yeah, it's true.
I don't want to see what it looks like when the Russian tanks also get that plus. So
Yeah,
man.
play this and make your friggin' T80 a 5/4.
Ugh.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
Or make that British one cost Blitz tank a 3/4, or the
Mm.
one cost Fury tank.
Yeah. There's a lot of.
Nasty. All right, let's move on. Iron from the North. If you control the front line, gain 3 additional credits. What do you think?
Man, I feel like I'm Mr. Negative. I played a couple games today as Germany, and I played opponents who were playing this against me, and I just was like, man, I don't know. Like, I think I'm gonna win. You're just.
I'm not gonna be that harsh. I would give this card like a 3 or something.
In draft?
I think it's bad in draft. Don't play this in draft.
That's what I'm talking about. Draft. I just drafted.
I'd give this like a 3 in constructed. This is another. It has its role to play in those German Blitz decks.
Yeah.
It's similar to the guy that we were discussing previously. It's going to give you more money. It's going to let you get more units, and the fact that its card disadvantage isn't as bad because you're going to be playing Enigma to try to refill your hand.
Right. Yeah.
The problem with it is that it is card disadvantage. It accelerates you, but it doesn't accelerates you, but it doesn't accelerate you permanently. It's just a one-off. So you kind of have to have the situation line up properly. But in that deck where you have a lot of cheap units and you're going to be going fast and attacking aggressively, it can be really strong. You know, no doubt it can be very strong.
Yeah, it's in an Enigma deck is clearly meant to be a thing with Germany, sure, and that this card feels like it's going in that path. And yeah, I'd say average because like it's probably not your favorite card. Maybe I'm wrong though. Maybe the guy sees that in his opening hand. He's like, oh, this is going to be a good start. You know.
If you have the other pieces and you can construct a deck that has a bunch of those pieces, it can be quite good.
But so then we agree, because I was talking about draft. I'm always going to probably start with draft. Most of my experience with Germany is just drafting.
Yeah, I give this like a 2 in draft, maybe even a 1. But I would say it's like a 3. It's probably like a solid 3, maybe even a 4 in constructed.
Unless maybe in draft you just got lucky and you got a bunch of Enigmas or something, and I guess you make that deck work.
If you had Enigma and you had cheap units, sure, draft this. Why not?
All right,
let's move on. Lurking Danger, 1 cost elite. Draw a random countermeasure from your deck. Costs 3 less this turn. I think this card is really bad.
It's tough because.
I think as elites go, I think this is one of the worst elites.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. If you draw a random countermeasure from your deck, your opponent knows that you have a countermeasure.
Yeah.
Since a lot of the value of countermeasures is surprising your opponent, that's kind of a problem. Additionally, if they have a general sense of what countermeasures you're likely to have, they can play around them to some degree. For instance, in a recent game, someone played Lurking Danger. This was in draft, I believe. And I was like, okay, he played Lurking Danger. And then he did the thing that made me think he had a countermeasure. I'm like, okay, he has a countermeasure out. What is it? It's probably gonna be Careless Talk because that one's common and in Germany. I think I'm gonna just see what happens. I'm gonna play a unit that has 4 HP, and lo and behold, it was Careless Talk, and my unit survived at 1 health. And similarly, you could be like, oh, I'm going to play a cheap unit first and let it die, and then I'm going to play my important unit. There's just like a lot of ways to counterplay this sort of thing. If you had a deck that had a bunch of diverse countermeasures so your opponent didn't know which one it was, that might be something else. But even then, like as the elites go, this is comparatively weak, in my opinion.
There is From the Deep, which just flat out destroys a unit. So it can be a little, oh, is he playing the one that does 3 damage, or is he playing the one that will kill literally anything?
Even then, if I play a cheap unit first and then I play my big unit, it's like...
Well, but that's the game, right? Because you make them think you're running Careless Talk, but you're not. So, I actually have seen this card played.
I think this is... I don't know. I think this is not... Like, compare this to Zhukov, which is a Soviet card. It's also an elite. 1 cost, and it draws an infantry from your deck, a Soviet infantry from your deck, and it's discounted by 3 permanently. That is so much better.
Okay, but hold up. Like, so that's relevant in draft because most likely in draft you'll have other elites to choose from, right? That's just. Am I wrong? That's how I find draft works. Is like they're like, okay, you get an elite now, right? And so you're not going to want this elite when you can choose like a better elite, right? But in constructed, you're building your deck around it. It doesn't matter if it's elite or not, right? Like it's just you're gonna if you own it, you own it, right? So I have seen someone the combo deck with the baby combo, whatever they call it. You said this card was played against me, and it was kind of annoying because it's like, well, it's a race against time. I have to kill this guy as quick as I can. I don't know what the heck he just got out of his deck. In a combo deck, you're not going to get like milled out or whatever, so there's no threat of like taking an extra card out of your deck. Because I actually do think that's a cost in more slower decks to like keep shrinking your deck.
Fair. It does make it easier to draw into your combo.
In British Mirrors, I found that we both kind of deck eventually because we're just playing stuff, but that's not the issue in a combo deck. So
one other thing I'll say about this is that there is a grammatical mistake on this card. Navy commander also thought that submarine warfare was dishonorable.
Oh no! So actually, another thing, thinning your deck is good in a combo deck because it means you get to your combo pieces faster. So
this
just
is also wrong where it says that the German U-boat arm was close to win the Battle of the Atlantic instead of close to winning. If you're watching this stream, hire me as a proofreader for your flavor text.
Sure. But do you agree? Like combo decks do want to thin their deck, and that's what this card does.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, I think if you have a combo deck and you're running, especially like here's the thing, that's actually a really good point that I hadn't really thought of because I don't play much combo. But if you're playing a combo deck and you're like, okay, I want to play countermeasures to just stall my opponent while I assemble my combo, and this also thins my deck, this is pretty solid. I think you're right.
So I give it like an average to good in constructed and pretty horrible in draft, just because you don't even know what countermeasures you're going to get. Like if you take this card early in draft, you don't even know like if you're going to get a countermeasure.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Right, pack 36. 1 cost artillery, 1 operations, 1/1. When your enemy deploys a tank unit, deal 1 damage to it. What do you think?
I'm just going to start with constructed. Bad. 1.
It's okay.
It dies to sickle.
Okay, you have a point there.
It dies to Flame Panzer, which I love playing Flame Panzer.
Yeah, we're gonna get to Flame Panzer in a bit. Flame Panzer is really, really good right now.
I
don't know if it's good normally, but like in the current meta, which has a lot of like aggro units,
it also dies to the Katushka or whatever.
Katyusha and Nurble.
Yep. I'm sorry, and like that's just the stuff that comes to mind immediately. Like there's just these are high tier cards that everyone's playing right now.
So your thought on this card is that it's there's just too much 1 damage ping in the current environment to bring this guy.
Or stuff that kills 1 drops that just coincidentally hammers this guy.
That's fair. You know, I think that at least in theory, this is actually a pretty solid card. Especially as it's a very cheap artillery that you can play early, which is going to increase the number of different types of units that you have for those cards like Joint Operation, or I'm sorry,
yes.
Joint Operation.
No, yeah, I know where you're going with this.
Yeah.
Combined Arms and the other one we're going to get to.
Yeah, maybe it is Joint Operation.
Joint Operation. Yeah.
Mixed up.
Yeah. No. So in draft, because that's why I started with constructed. In draft, I'd say a 3 for sure.
This guy can also be really good if you play him early and your opponent has some of that stuff that has 1 HP. This guy can become like a easy pick off. The fact that he does the 1 damage to tanks is not always relevant, but sometimes it's an easy ability to forget. Sometimes it can set up something strong.
Yeah.
It does also kind of rein in some. If you play this as player 1 in particular, and your opponent then plays something like a Greyhound, for instance, you know, that's much less favorable than
it's real bad. Yeah. It is also good with the cards that are just below it, the Panzer and the KFZ.
The 222?
Right below the Panzer 2, which gives +1 to a non-tank. And then you have the SDFKZ, which gives you +1 next to a ground unit.
Just call that the 222.
Sure.
Okay. So moving on to those. Oh yeah, so like sum up the previous one. That little artillery, not good in the current constructed meta, but good in draft.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Panzer 2A, one cost, 1/3, blitz and smoke screen, one operation tank. What do you think?
I'll give it a 3 in constructed, and I want to say a 3 in draft, but like I do, the more I draft with Germany, the more I kind of avoid this guy for the other cheaper stuff. Just because, like for example, the American guy who's like basically the same unit gives you bonuses for like your backline, where this guy just has smokescreen. And
Yeah, the Greyhound.
yes, and so like
I think this is basically the Greyhound, but worse. But I do
exactly.
think that the Greyhound is also quite strong, so this is still like a decent
Yeah,
player.
I'll play it, but I'm not happy about it. Like,
That's fair.
yeah.
All right, moving to the Panzer 2C. Very similar to the previous one. This one is a one cost, 1/3 deployment. Give a friendly non-tank unit +1 attack. What do you think?
So this is what I wish the other tank was. I will take
I
this
do
guy.
think this is often better.
Yes. I find huge value giving bombers and artillery +1. I mean, sure, infantry too. Like, you know, you play a cheap infantry and then you play this guy, sure. But bombers and artillery is where I get really excited for this guy. And I'll sometimes hold him in my hand if I have like a good cheap something coming up, and I want to give that. Like for example, the Pack 36. You play that guy and then this guy, and that's a sweet deal. In draft. Yeah. In draft. I don't know.
One thing about the previous one that is nice is that smokescreen does let you sometimes set up something good.
It lets you hide from maybe a bigger, meaner guy. And it's pretty. I will play the Panzer if I'm playing a frontline, like I'll do Germany, America, where I need to like just get frontline quick for something.
Yeah.
That is a positive, and yeah, because of smokescreen, sometimes it's huge. Because you can kind of hide from bombers, hide from artillery, and maybe kill a bomber or an artillery with this guy.
Okay. Oh yeah, so let's sum that one up. The Panzer 2C, I think like actually quite strong in draft and at least like decent in constructed.
Sure, yeah, this guy could hover on a 4. I think he's a good unit.
I'd say like 3 in constructed, 4 in draft. Does
yeah,
that seem reasonable?
Works for me.
All right, 222.
4.
This unit was in Company of Heroes 2. And it was really good and annoying at some times in the meta of that game. In this game, it's also really good and annoying.
It is so annoying. Like you will often prioritize killing this guy over the often like not maybe let's say better units next to him. Because
I would say this is a solid 4, both constructed and draft.
Yes, I actually pick this guy aggressively.
The buff is really good. Adjacent ground units have +1 attack. That's a great combo with artillery. You can also have this guy move to the front line kind of as a combat surprise to give the unit next to him that extra point of damage that he needs.
Yeah, really good. He acts as like almost like a soft removal spell because of the way he can blitz up and get you. Or just you have a bomber or artillery, not a bomber, artillery, and you just play this guy, and then all of a sudden the math is off for the opponent. They didn't see that coming.
Yep.
It's huge card.
Very solid card.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're saying like 4, both draft and constructed.
Yeah.
Solid. 222. You're doing well in this game. Stranglehold. 1 cost countermeasure. When a unit is deployed, the enemy loses remaining credits.
I had someone play this against me today in draft, and I played a Tiger tank at 8, and he was sad.
I want to argue for this card. I don't think this card is awful. One advantage this card has is if you have other countermeasures. This, like I was talking earlier about, oh, my opponent is going to play something. I bet he has Careless Talk. I'm going to play a cheap unit first, and then my unit that I would want to not get damaged. Well, if you play your cheap unit first, that's actually Stranglehold, then you basically just forfeited your turn. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, dude. This card has lost me games. Like I've had people play this on me, and I lost the game because of it.
This card can be strong, but the problem is there's also times where it doesn't go off, and even when it's strong, it's card disadvantage.
It is card disadvantage. It's a tempo card, and it's luck tempo.
The tempo that it buys you can be just what you need. So I would say this card is. I would say this is solid and constructed. I don't think it's as good in draft because they kind of tend to be more like generic value in draft. But even then, it can definitely be a nasty surprise at times.
I wouldn't play more than 1, maybe. But like, I think that it can be like a game changer. Like it's variance in my mind, like because it's a little out of your hands what the opponent does. You don't know what they're going to do. You don't even know if maybe they were going to play one card anyway. You don't know, and
Yeah.
what it gets you to because the opponents might play cards then attack, but now they can't attack. So you might have just like smoke screen, smoke screen their entire attack or fog it in Magic. They'd say. So the card's high variance in competitive play. You try to avoid variance. So I would be nervous to ever take this card, to be honest with you. And I guess we can leave it at that. I don't know. Do you draft that card? Do you like in draft?
I don't play decks like that, but if I were.
Yeah, well, when I'm drafting, that's not the kind of card I pick. And for that rarity, I'm probably gonna. I think Germany has amazing cards at this rarity.
All right, let's move on. 141.
Jagger.
It's Jaeger.
Jaeger. I tried. There you go.
Keyberg's Jaeger. Okay, whatever.
You're right. It's Jaeger, but the rest. Keyberg's Jaeger. I'm gonna say 5, man.
That means mountain hunter.
I just screw the name. This guy's a 5 on everything.
Yeah. Okay. This guy.
Dude, I put this guy in all my decks.
So this card. Okay. So it's 2 cost, 3/3, 1 operations. So its stats are already kind of above curve. Cannot be targeted by enemy orders, which is an extremely strong defensive ability, and it has Alpine. This card is so dumb.
No, man. The art's a little crazy because it looks like it's I don't know, like I kind of get what's going on, but like it looks like to me like an ocean in the background, but they're clearly like on a mountain. But what I spent a lot of time staring at this card because I play it in like all my constructed decks.
Okay. This card is so strong that even if you have no other Alpine cards,
I never play.
It is still extremely strong.
I don't play Alpine.
If you have other Alpine cards in your deck, it can become just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, there's that other guy too that draws cards when you play Alpine, but this guy is insane. Like, so the 3/3 stats.
Earlier about how it's like the Bloody Sickle is such an on-meta card. Well, guess who can't be hit by Bloody Sickle?
Thank you. Yeah, that's why I play this guy, because sometimes people just want to cantrip their sickles. They don't actually want to kill him. They can't do it. I can't tell you how many times I've killed people when this guy's at 1 health and I know they have a sickle in their hand because like a turn or later they play the sickle on something else. I've had people sickle things that don't even make sense to sickle because they couldn't sickle this guy. This card is insane. It's really good against aggro. It's really good in a mid-range deck because it helps you counter aggro but also lets you beat aggro.
Yeah, this guy is an ace. This guy is so strong. I would say this guy is like a 4 or a 5 in both formats.
3/3 is way above curve. It kills the 1/3s. It kills the 3/3 tank, the T80. This thing is crazy. We don't even have to talk more about it. This thing kills that 2/3. That's probably the second best card in the game. The 1-drop 2/3. Do you disagree? I mean, I don't want to tangent the best card, but yeah, this guy's good.
22nd Infantry Regiment. What do you think?
I love this guy. This is a 5 in draft, no question. And maybe you don't pick him if you're playing like some super derpy like 8,000 removal spell card deck. But even in that situation, I could see you sneaking something in the front lines, then playing him as a cantrip. This card is a cantrip almost 100% of the time. Like unless you're just losing the game, you're gonna draw 1 card. They'll probably kill him. It's a that's 2 for 1. Like they spent 1 card, you drew a card, and they took your card, so you still have another card, you know.
And in the right situation, this card can be much more than that. Also.
Yeah. Well,
it's like, oh, I have the front line, and like my opponent, if they use removal on this, isn't clearing my units that are actually killing them, so they can't afford to do it. So I'm going to draw 2 or 3 cards.
Yeah.
This guy's really good. This guy's crazy.
He's very solid. I find he's very strong for mid-range decks. Mid-range decks traditionally struggle against control decks, but this guy lets you beat the control decks because you're drawing cards passively, and they have to do something about it.
Yeah, one good advantage of this guy also is that even if he gets pinned or your front line gets pinned or whatever, This guy means that you're still profiting from having those units there.
Right, the pin decks.
Which
Yeah.
can be really good for those decks, like the British Japanese air decks that spam pins.
Yep. That's how.
This
Yeah.
guy can be like a useful asset, though often they have those bombers that do 1 damage and pin when they come into play, which can pick him off.
Sure, but I mean, you could say removal kills things for days. I mean, that's just how the game works, right?
Yeah, it's true. I'd say this guy is easily like a 4 or a 5. The main downside to playing him is, as we were discussing with several other units, 1 defense is not very safe right now.
Sickle, yeah.
But unlike some of those other units, he very often will draw you a card on the turn that you play him, which means that, if you have Bloody Sickle, that's a 0 for 1 because Bloody Sickle is broken.
Right. So,
but if they have, if they do have one of those other things, like if they play a Katusha and ping this guy, and then you have I don't know, Katusha's also crazy.
So Katush, but the thing is, if they sickle your Katushka, then you're still down a card. They're not. If they sickle this, you're even.
Yeah.
And honestly, sometimes in life you just got to be happy with breaking even. So
pretty strong.
Good card. Constructed. I play this in constructed in several decks, even decks that you would think shouldn't even have this card, but. The point is, like, it's a good card, it cantrips, and even if you're not super aggressive, you're playing a lot of removal spell, you probably are clearing the path for this guy. And he can also draw off himself. So sometimes they'll kill the unit that's drawing me cards, and I'll just move this guy up. And I might be doing that knowing they're going to kill him the next turn, but he just draws me another card, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good point also. If they clear your front line, you can just move him up, take a card, they'll have to deal with him somehow.
Yeah. So first turn I draw a card because somebody else was in the front line. The next turn they kill that guy. I move him up. He gives me another card. They kill him. So what? I drew a card.
It turns out card advantage is a useful thing to put in your deck.
It's also tempo because infantry can't kill him and then move up to the front line. So now I've delayed him another turn. So you get tempo and a card.
You kind of gave him a 1-2 punch there, actually.
Yeah, for 1 cost, 1 movement up, you've delayed them a turn and drew a card. I mean, how could you not love that? So.
All right, let's move on. Third, Fallschirmjäger. 2/2 deployment gets +1/+1 for each non-infantry unit type you control. 1 operations. What do you think about this guy?
I'm gonna give him a 3. Like, he wants to be a 4, but he's not a 4. Like.
Yeah, I would say this guy is a 3 or maybe even a 2. Actually, it kind of depends.
Right? See, you see what I'm saying, right? Like, on paper, I get super excited, but then when I actually play him, a lot of times he just chills in my hand because a 2/2 just isn't that great, and then I need him to at least be a 3/3, and maybe my stuff keeps dying or whatever, and so whatever. I have got him up to a 5/5 before. I've had good experiences with him. But that's kind of a win more card, right? Like, if I'm getting him up to 3/3, it's because my opponent just allowed me to have bombers and artillery and tanks, So.
Yeah, this guy, I actually really don't like this guy that much. I think he's almost a trap. He seems really good on paper. But then, like, you get in these actual situations and you're like, oh, well, I guess I can play this guy. Like, if you're late in the game and you're kind of both in top deck mode, which happens a fair bit in draft, like, this is a card you really don't want to see.
But come on, like, he is potentially a very easy 3/3 with not much effort, and that's similar to our Jaeger friend.
Okay, but it's like the Jaeger guy never has a situation where he's a 2/2. Scale up with Alpine, that's harder to do than scaling with this guy. But the icing on the cake is that can't be target ability, which is really good.
Yeah, I mean, hey, maybe there's a better card. You take that card over this guy. I find it interesting that you don't like him as much as I do, but I also don't love him either. And I am saying he is a trap sometimes. So
yeah, I've had I think just too many games where I've drafted this guy and thought he was going to be really cool, and just had him sitting in hand.
He just he's not winning you games. I'll tell you that. He might be helping out on something, but. Like alone, like when I first played this game and I saw this guy, in my imagination, this guy's like some absurd 4/4/5/5 all the time. Not true. And if he is a 5/5, you're probably winning anyway. Just saying. So
I don't know if he's good in. He might be better in constructed than in draft, but in draft
I've
I'd probably actually give this guy like a 2. I think he looks
wow.
sick, but
Sure.
then you
Yeah.
just find yourself so often thinking like, well, shoot,
Yeah. Hey,
or at least I do. You know, maybe you guys are better at keeping your units alive.
I don't. I think you're in. I've never seen anyone like play him in a very high tier deck in constructed, but
Yeah.
he's kind of a budget card, and you know he obviously is meant to be part of the combined arms or whatever plan, right?
One caveat that I want to give to this card also, a lot of the other combined arms type things are going to have their benefit including the unit's own type. This guy does not do that.
Yeah, he doesn't help himself at all, and if you already have infantry in play, it does nothing for him. So
Right.
yeah,
So like that other one where it's like +1/+1 for each unit type to a tank. Tank
mm,
counts as a unit type, like we mentioned earlier.
right.
But for this guy, infantry doesn't count as a unit type, even if you have other infantry already in play, and that can be kind of harsh.
Yeah, yeah. Sure. All right.
Okay, let's move on. 3.7 centimeter flak 37. 2 cost, 0 operations, 1/2 blitz. It's a tank. Well, it's a half track, but it counts as a tank.
Yeah, I always get amused when stuff is tank, but sometimes it's infantry, but like they look the exact same in the picture to me. But anyway, uh, I give in constructed this guy's very good, but he's also like the worst card in the deck. I mean, it just is true, right? Like
Yeah.
I've played against the German aggro deck a lot of times. It's a top tier list. Like if you're in the top 10, you've played against that list. But I've learned from playing against that list probably like 20 times that this is probably like one of the worst cards in the deck. So it's a low priority to kill this guy versus pretty much everything else in the deck. But it is a good card in that deck. So it's I'd say a 3 in constructed, but like it's a friendly 3.
It feels slightly generous because it's like it is played in a strong deck, but it's probably one of the weakest cards in that deck, like you said.
But the deck
But
needs that
like,
card.
it's not total trash, and it has some good synergy with some of the other stuff.
Zero cost activation is obviously the best part of it, and it's a
Great
tank.
synergy with that 222, by the way, to make him do 2 damage instead of 1.
That's the combo. But like I was saying earlier, you always kill the 222 first.
Yeah.
So this guy's like his friend, you know?
When someone plays this and they rush to the front line and poke my base for 1, I'm like, okay, whatever, bro.
It cost him 0, though.
Well, it cost them 2.
Yeah, but then after that, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Zero cost is huge.
0 operations cost is a big boon.
Yeah.
I won't deny that.
Yeah.
In fact, I'll probably talk it up on other cards in the future, especially when we get to the Japan review. Because I'll tell you something about Japan. Japan aggro is very, very, very strong right now, guys.
Yeah, it's good. And zero cost is hardest thing in the game to balance, really.
Some of you may have noticed that I am sometimes leaning over to the side of the frame. That's because I'm currently painting a Tauntaun rider here for Star Wars Legion. So.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to the next unit. 59th Panzer Grenadier. 2 cost, 1 operations, 3/2. Can move and attack during the same turn, even though it's an infantry. What do you think?
I think, hey, look, this guy's infantry and the other guy's a tank, but that's like the same picture. But this guy is pretty much the same in the same boat. These two are in the same constructed deck together. I will pick this guy more heavily in draft, but at best he's an average. He's like a 3 for me.
I think this guy is like a 3.
Yeah. He's kind of meat and potatoes of a deck. And he doesn't necessarily have to be in an aggro deck or a mid-range deck. He just kind of is. The biggest thing is he does 3 damage, which kills a lot of the other better cards. So he kills above his weight class. How about that? But he also loses below his weight class.
Yeah, sometimes the opponent can like hit him with a Woken Giant or something to get the 1-hit kill. The fact that he can move and attack is nice though with that stat line because he can often be like at your home base. And it's harder for your opponent to get to him, and then he kind of lunges up and attacks either just going face or he lunges up and attacks something that they just played.
Like a bomber.
trades favorably with Greyhound, which is nice.
A bomb. Well, it can kill a T80, but also just being able to kill bombers is not nothing. Like 3 damage is huge for bombers. So
yeah, if someone plays if you play this, and you're playing against British Air and they don't just immediately pin you.
Yep, then they're in trouble.
It's like you were saying, hitting above your weight can be good, and he is a little less vulnerable to pinning than other infantry simply because he doesn't have to spend 2 turns to get into attack position.
Well, and he has an extra health versus, and doesn't have 1 health, so he doesn't just die.
Yeah, but if you compare this guy to
I see what you're
normal
saying.
infantry unit against a deck that does have pinning, they have to pin this guy every turn. Whereas if they pin the infantry on the turn that you play it normally, that actually gives them 2 turns before the infantry can start attacking them.
Very true. And so 3 for this guy though. He's not like a all-star.
I think this guy's like a 3. I might even give him a 4 in draft. I think he's a pretty strong contender in draft. I think.
Yeah, it's just in draft there's more junk, and so he will die to the junk. And maybe a 1-for-1 is fine, right? Like who cares?
Yeah, but in draft it's also more likely that someone will be playing random bonus damage against tanks artillery, which only has 1 attack, and he can just lunge in there and kill it.
Yeah, he like you said, he hits above his weight class, so maybe a 4, but I don't know. I don't get that excited for him. I'm just like, oh, whatever.
I'd give him a 3.5.
Yeah, there you go.
3.5 in draft. I don't know.
All
right, let's move on. 8th Fallschirmjäger, 2 cost, 1 operation, 3/2 Blitz Fury. What do you think?
I love him. He's not the best of what he's doing. There's better cards, but
this card has one really big problem, which is there's a Japanese card that basically does this exact same role but better.
Exactly. He's he's the second fiddle. I wish I was that other guy, but hey, this is what I do.
He's better sometimes. The other one does have some requirements that you have to set up.
He doesn't need friends like the other guy needs a setup. But yeah, there's not much to say. And he has the activation cost, so he's actually a little more expensive in reality.
Yeah.
He's a 3-drop pretending to be a 2-drop.
Yeah, so I think this guy's pretty good.
I'd give him a 4.
He's incredible.
But the 4 is just because he's just good because he's good. He has a lot of text and he does things. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd probably give this guy a 4. The really nice thing about Fury with this is that if you do get in, you can be double tapping their base, which is always a good thing to be doing with this type of unit.
Kinda not until next turn though,
Yeah, that's the thing. You don't get to move and attack. Unless you play Lightning Conquest.
Honestly, there's not a huge difference between the Panzer Grenadier and this guy. But
I think this guy's better than the Panzer.
100% he is. Obviously, as Fury, his blitz allows him to move that turn, but they're not that different.
The Panzer Grenadier is better at sitting back and waiting for the right moment.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
But this guy, the Fury really helps in an aggro situation a lot.
Yeah.
Fury has a great ability for aggro.
Yeah.
The only problem is that it does, of course, mean that you have to pay his operation cost twice to make full use of him.
Yeah.
But, it is what it is. All right, let's move on. I'd say this guy's a 4 in both draft and constructed.
Yep.
Encirclement, 2 costs. Duplicate duplicate a friendly unit in the front line with a cost of 3 or less and give it a blitz. What do you think?
In constructed, he's probably average good. In draft, similar. Sometimes I've actually had situations.
You just don't have good.
Yes.
To use this with.
I've drafted him or this card and then got really excited, and then all of a sudden I noticed I didn't have that many good 3-drops, and I was like, okay. I mean, I guess it's okay.
I think this guy's pretty strong, personally.
I've had a few situations where it wasn't as good as I thought it would be, and just whatever. Yeah. But now that being said, if you can there's some situations where you can really go nuts with this card, and it's crazy.
Yeah, it's I just duplicated the freaking American Marine unit. That's a 5/5.
Yeah. Well, yes. Wow, I've never done that before. That sounds glorious.
The operation costs make that not
really hard. Yeah.
With the blitz part, but
Yeah, no, because you got to move that guy up to 2, so it's 3, then 2, then by then you're already on turn 5. And even then, on turn 5, you got to pay 2 for this, then 2 for the other guy, so you didn't even really profit until turn 6. So yeah, not as blitzy as you'd like, but um, it's a good card, and it's played and constructed. I can't say anything really bad of it. It's just it's a good card. Um,
Yeah.
I've been burned though. Like there's been times where it just
I'd
sits in
say
my
this is a
hands.
4 in constructed, and maybe it drops down to a 3 in draft because sometimes you don't have like the types of guys in that cost slot that you would want to be using this with.
The word would be situational. Like you have to be in the front line.
All right, let's move on.
Yeah.
Encirclement. So encirclement, pretty good. From the deep, when the enemy deploys a unit, destroy it. 2 cost countermeasure. So this is basically the same card as Careless Talk, except if your opponent does have an even bigger unit that gets past the like important 3 health threshold, this card doesn't care and just kills them anyway.
I give this a 5.
You give this a 5?
Yeah, uh, I know you have the whole thing about they see you doing it, but like I just don't care when I use this. I will use this on turn 2. I will use this on turn 8. I don't care. Like
I'd give this probably a 4. I think it is better than Careless Talk because it so the downside of course is that it costs more.
okay, how about this?
Reliability is good. Like the worst case is this is a 1-for-1.
Here's the
I guess
thing.
the worst case is that they're playing the deck that spams Soviet light infantry tokens, and it's like a
Sure, yeah, there's matchups where it's bad. However, most people know Careless Talk exists. Most people forget this card exists. So what will happen
the nice
is,
thing about this one is that if someone does play a big unit to try to make it like they think,
yes,
oh, he's played Careless Talk, they play a big guy to try to soak the damage. Oh, they just lost their big guy, and it's not going to get you a card. I won't give this guy a 5 because he's not going to give you a card advantage. He's not going to like run away with the game, but he is often going to be a favorable 1-for-1, like a good trade. You know what I mean?
okay, so super quick. I know we're getting a little slow, but in draft in Magic, the first thing you always grab is the bomb in a draft pack. The bomb is the card that like will just flat out win you the game. It's like a I win the game card. Right. Then it's removal. This card is removal. It's not a bomb, and so maybe I'm being a little generous. However, removal is mostly what you're looking for because if there was bombs in every card, then there would be no such thing as everything would be a bomb, right? So like obviously if you see this like super crazy card, you grab it, right? This is not.
What would you give this guy for constructed?
I mean, maybe a 4, but like it. If I could play like 5 of these things, I would. You know, like if you could just make the opponent lose. Like if someone loses like a 4 cost card, you paid 2. So it's tempo.
Like you're just buying tempo and like just waiting.
Exactly. And what? Okay, they play a cheap minion. I probably broke even anyway because I paid 2. You paid 2. Okay. Like, you know, like I don't care what this card kills. Obviously, if it kills like a 1/1 token, but token decks are not that popular in this game. Period. I was like, we can kind of keep going, but like there's not that many token cards in this game right now, which is interesting.
No, yeah, I think the only thing that this is like has an awful matchup with is the Soviet light infantry deck.
That's it.
I guess it's kind of bad against Japanese aggro also because they have so many 1-drops.
But bad is in like more like average because like okay,
bad is not as in like this card stinks, it's worthless. But bad is in like, oh, you know, I made a like slightly unfavorable 1-for-1 instead of a slightly favorable 1-for-1.
Likely, if you're playing this card though, you're happy to just slow the Japanese guy down. You know.
One other thing about drafts is that if you do get into that late game top deck mode, this is like one of the sickest cards you can have if the opponent does happen to top deck into like some big guy or whatever.
Right, and
this can kill like a tiger. This can kill, you know, whatever scary late game tank they're gonna play.
Oh my god, dude, this card is so good. Like, there's times where the board is like kind of empty because you both have been just kind of killing everything, and then you have like the bomb in your hand, like the big tiger tank. You play this card, and then the next turn you play the tiger tank because obviously you timed it out in your head. And whatever they play is going to die. And then maybe they play 2 things, but they're definitely not as good as a tiger tank.
So the one downside I will say about this card is that we were talking earlier about how this often gets you a favorable trade. If the opponent has effects that play either on deployment or on death, those effects do go off with this. It's not like a counterspell in Magic or whatever. So that does mean that like sometimes you can be in a situation where like, you know, if I play the US 3-cost 2/2 that gives you an extra credit slot, and the opponent does this, I'm like, okay, whatever, dude.
Like,
Yeah.
the main reason I played that card was to get the credit slot, and I still got it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's kind of removal on your opponent's turn, which is huge when you, like I said, you're going to play that Tiger tank. So like on your opponent's turn, you spend resources. Then on your turn, you just drop the bomb.
Oh yeah, the other obvious situation where this is bad is if they don't play a unit. Like if the opponent already has a board that's stronger than you, and
Yeah,
they're probably gonna spend their resources on operations costs. This is not that good.
it still though could keep them from snowballing out of control.
Yeah,
Like,
it's true. It's not like, oh, don't bother to activate it, but it's like you might wish that you had like a guard unit or whatever.
yeah, I'm gonna stick with my 5. I might be slightly too generous, but I'm not gonna regret it too much.
Okay. Let's move on. Henschel HS 123, 2-cost bomber, 1 operation cost, 1/3 with fury. What do you think?
I actually play one of these in a lot of my decks, and you want to know why? A lot of mid-range decks are really bad against tokens, and this card lets you kill 2 tokens a turn for 1 each. That's
Yeah,
a
this guy's also really good against 1 health units. A lot of like we were
Yup,
mentioning earlier.
the
You know,
Katusha.
if the opponent has like a Katusha or something, this does not die in 1 hit to a Katusha.
Yep,
It can just fly over and blow it up, and
And-
also have another hit besides.
and does not get hit by Sickle.
That's true because it's flying. Bloody Sickle does only work on ground units.
This is a very strong card in Constructed and probably Draft. Obviously, if it's if anything's good in Constructed, it's mostly unless it's a combo card, it's probably good in Draft too.
So what would you give this in Constructed? Like you give this like a 3 or a
I'm
4?
I'm gonna go 4, maybe.
Yeah, I'd
So
probably a 4.
I can't give it a 5 because I often never play 2, even though I could, because it's still sort of sideboard-y. But so the thing with it is, the best removal is like they do 3 damage to it, but usually that costs 3 or more resources, so you're getting a little resource advantage. 2-drops are pretty rare in mid-range decks to play that are good. It's just a thing, right? Like if you have a good 2-drop, it's very valuable for mid-range decks. So this card, it's like you said, it survives the Katushka and then kills the Katushka without dying, and it dodges most removal pretty well for the beginning of the game, and most removals are a loss when they're used on this card. Also very strong against tokens. Sometimes things just have 1 health too, so you're like, okay, I kill that thing with 1 health, and then this thing's going to have 1 health because I use a removal spell, and then they're both dead.
One little note that I want to add about this card, I believe this is the cheapest German bomber.
It
Which
is.
can be useful if you are trying to enable that like multiple types of units synergy.
Also strong. Yeah, very good card.
Okay, let's move on. Next card, Henschel HS 126. This is a fighter. 2-cost, 1/2 deployment. Give friendly ground units on the front line +1 attack.
I avoid it. I don't like it.
Yeah, I think this one. The other one has a strong ability Fury and Bomber, which is the good unit type. This one, like the stats are a little worse. I'm not fond of this guy. I'm not fond of this guy.
I just the 1 damage for 1 like I get it that they can't give this guy a 0 resource, but I'm sorry, but like the 1 isn't worth it. Like I don't know what else to say. Like bombers for 1 can like ping things and not take any repercussions, but this thing just doesn't do anything. Okay.
I'd say this guy is probably like a 2 or something.
I am a huge fan of Russia, and it has a 1/2 that when it dies becomes a 3/2. Yeah. And it has the same cost as this.
To be fair, that card is really good.
But this card is even close to that. Like, and it's situational. You have to be in the front line.
In the front line, +1 attack is a decent ability, but it's not a like astounding ability, and it's not enough to justify these bad overall numbers.
The card, in theory, is supposed to combo with the 1-drop that we discussed a long time ago. So you play the 1-drop, move it up for free, then play this guy, it's a 2/2 for 1, and then boom, there you go. But then what do you really, you got this guy as a 1/2. Like, you're not gaining that much. If anything, he's just giving his 1 power to another unit.
Yeah.
We'll leave it at this. But the American guy, give +1/+1 to anyone, anywhere. And same cost. And he's a 2/2.
Operation. 2 cost. Deal damage to target enemy equal to 1 plus the number of unit types you control. This is one of those cards we were talking about earlier in terms of unit type
Yeah.
diversity being strong.
This is this card's an archetype. I mean, just making your diverse units. That's a thing that people do with Germany to win games. So that being said, though, you don't have to force it that much because it gives you 1 damage for free. So I value this card pretty highly. I'd give it like a 3 easily. It is removal. We discussed removal is important.
I'd say like 3 in constructed, 4 in draft.
Sure.
I picked this card pretty early on in draft just because you want to have that removal. Worst case scenario, this is 1 damage.
Yep.
If you have even 1 unit, this is 2 damage, and if you have more than that, it can potentially be very strong. It does hit air. The other really nice thing about this is it actually is target enemy. It's not target enemy unit. You can focus on the enemy HQ.
I've won games because this can target an HQ. Hitting air is insanely important. And 2 cost for 2 damage is good. Like
I've also picked up some wins by like, oh snap, joint operation is going to be the final blow on their HQ. Let's finish them off. So this has been a very solid card for me.
Yep. I'd say 3, or you were saying 4. Sure. Whatever.
I was saying 3 constructed, 4 in draft.
Sure, I'll take it. Yeah, removal's good.
All right, missing 2 cost countermeasure. Destroy a unit when moved to the front line.
Through draft 3, like 2 in constructed.
Yeah, so the problem with this card is that sometimes you're like, oh man, I have a sick play, and then they like play a blitz unit or something, and that unit dies instead, and you're like, wow.
I have blown people out in draft with this card. I've killed tigers.
It definitely has blowout potential.
I've killed tigers that can't be targeted by spells. That just feels dirty. I got some chuckles out of that one because, like, wow.
The dream scenario with this card is like they play their like crazy heavy unit, and you're like, oh, here we go, baby. Like the front line's open, come and get me.
Yeah,
and then you just blow them up. And then but then of course the like horrible reversal that I've had happen to me is it's that situation, except then they play like a blitz unit, like a freaking Greyhound or something, and move in with that, and then you're like, wow.
That feels bad, man. I mean, this is why I didn't rate it super high. It's too situational. The opponent controls what happens, not you. And man, sometimes you just lose and no one goes in the front line.
Also, while it is removal, this also does nothing against bombers and artillery, who will almost never move to the front line.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
These are often the most important units to have removal against. So that's kind of like a secret downside of this card.
Very strong point. You're right. That's a good way to verbalize it. Like the units you usually use removal on are the ones like that. Yeah. So this does nothing to that.
I won't say this card is bad, but I will say that it has some flaws.
I mean, I gave it like an average. Come on.
Yeah. Alright, let's move to the next page here. Panzer 35T. 2 cost, 1 operations, 2/2 blitz. Deployment, reduce operation cost by 1 if you control an infantry.
I mean, probably a 4 in constructed.
4 in constructed, 3 in draft, I would say probably.
I'm so glad you said that because I thought you were going to yell at me. I used to pick this guy really heavily, and I will say, if you're playing Japan and then you pick Germany as like your secondary faction, you're probably gonna.
Yeah, this guy can be a killer.
Yeah, you want this guy. But otherwise, I'm sorry, but like I actually don't pick him heavily as much as when I was kind of a newbie. Like I think this card feels strong when you're starting out drafting, and then like later on you start realizing that like removal and other cards are more important, and you realize that this guy doesn't really trade very well. And like if you're not killing someone like within like the 6-7 turns or something, like he's kind of not getting his card value out of the game.
If you're aggroing someone with this guy, he's really good. He is so annoying to be like, okay, first turn, 1 drop with 0 operating cost. Ideally one of the Japanese ones. Second turn, play this guy and shoot their base, and the other guy is also on the front line now.
And remember we were talking about the other little cars, and we're giving him like 3s. This guy is the better card in that deck. Like he's more power, he's blitzing, he costs 0 most of the time to activate. Like this guy is why those other cards aren't higher rated.
Yeah, I like this guy a lot if you can enable him, set him up.
It shouldn't be hard though in a constructed deck. And then again in draft, he's kind of a worker. He's like, hey, my deck is doing this thing, and this guy does the thing too. That's how I.
Of course, really wants you to have 1 cost infantry. So that's an important note for draft.
Right.
Sometimes, like you said, I used to draft this guy as a high priority because I had seen how good he could be in the right aggro situation. But then, sometimes I would have a situation where it's like, oh, I played this guy, and then, I drafted this guy, and then I just did not manage to draft other very many one-cost infantry. So this guy is not reliable.
I will.
One of the dumbest things you can do, it's so strong. If you play the one-cost American Engineer that gives +1/+1 to anyone who moves to the front line, if you play that on turn 1 and then on turn 2 you play this, it's extremely strong.
Wait, which guy that goes to the front line? Oh, right. Oh, yeah. I gotcha.
Get a 3/3.
The engineers or whatever.
3/3 with 0 operations tank on the front line.
Let me just play. I want to put this Panzer in perspective. I feel like he's kind of like Air Blitz. Okay, Air Blitz is the card 4 damage. To a HQ. If you want to play a creature, I don't know what's the term, a tank, sure, but you're playing a vehicle and you want to hit the HQ. This is the card for you. If you don't want a vehicle that is built to just attack HQs, like think about it like that. Like he's like a burn spell, right? Am I wrong?
Well, I don't know. Sometimes there's a situation where it's like, okay, this isn't the situation this guy is like really designed for, but there's an enemy unit with 2 health that's annoying. I'm gonna play this guy and rush him in. Okay,
so he's a burn spell and like a weak removal spell, like that can maybe kill a bomber or something,
Yeah, there's some flexibility to him. It's not like he's not one note.
You're right. Okay, mild removal, soft removal. How about that?
All right, so we were saying what, like a 4 in constructed, like 3 in draft. Is that where we were at?
I like that you said that. I agree. Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the next one here. Reichsbank, 2 cost, gain 3 additional credits next turn.
Look at the picture. I've never looked at this card. It's like a mine with a salt mine with probably Jewish treasure or something.
Remains of the Reichsbank wealth hidden in a salt mine.
Yeah, it's salt mine. There's.
So this card is weird. So again, this is a tempo card. It concedes card advantage, very obviously, but it lets you get that unit out sooner. That maybe is going to have something strong that's going to let you try to get like favorable trades and get that card advantage back.
I don't like it. I played this card.
Like it?
So I actually played this card in draft because I thought it meant forever, and I was like, that seems really good. Like 3. It would be busted. And that's why it didn't happen. And so I used it, and I was pretty sad. And obviously I figured it out because like the first time you do it, it didn't work. But afterwards, I just was like at a horrible taste in my mouth. This is, I think, played in the combo deck, just to get the resources. But so the combo deck knows the next turn it's going to go off. It plays it the turn before. You don't kill them, and then they kill you. They win the game. So.
All right.
Bad in draft.
Bad in draft, and it's okay in constructed. It's again, you're doing that plan where you play a bunch of stuff and then Enigma, so it's pretty decent there.
Yeah, the Enigma thing.
Retaliation, 2 cost. When your HQ receives damage, do equal damage to the enemy HQ.
Bad in draft, very strong in constructed. I've died to this card a few times.
I would say this is bad in draft, and it's like medium in constructed.
It's a finisher. Like I've straight up just lost because, dude, I had a guy play 2 of these on me.
Multiple copies of this.
Yes.
Them, like multiple times.
Words out of my mouth. I literally died because the guy, I thought he played 1, he played 2, so I hit him for what I thought would be 3, and then it was 6, and then I died.
Yeah, this is an annoying card for a very just straight face damage deck.
Which exists and is actually one of the best decks in the game, which I hate.
Yeah. I'd say this is like 3 for constructed, like 2 for draft, personally.
So it's not the best card in the deck that it's in.
It might even be a 1 for draft. It's so bad in draft.
Yeah, I don't disagree. It's because
the problem with this card is that if your opponent is more aggro than you.
Okay, so there is a thing where if you're at 1 life and you win the game, then did it matter that you're at 1 life? No, you won the game.
Exactly.
This card has to say, I win the game, or it's bad. Do you agree? So this card mostly won't say, I win the game. and it's bad.
Right. Except when it does, when it's great.
Yeah, but
Okay.
yeah, it's cool. That's variance, right?
Spoils of War, 2 costs. Choose and draw a card from the top 3 of your deck. Put rest on the bottom of your deck. What do you think? This is like a tutor, but it's a really limited tutor.
Straight up 3, average.
Yeah, I think 3 is a good rating for this card.
It's a good combo,
it's
and
not gonna be like, oh, this is an amazing card, but it is gonna provide that little bit of like, I need, you know, it's gonna help you get what you need.
yeah, it's not an ideal 2-drop because you wish every deck probably wishes it's doing something significant, like meaningful on turn 2. Otherwise, you'll lose. Like you said, you were saying 1-drops are important. Never mind 2. So it's scary to play this card on turn 2. But if your opponent does nothing and then you play this, insane. Because you're now, you know, you're playing draft. You have good cards and you have bad cards. This is going to get you the good cards or get you faster towards the good cards.
And it filters out the bad cards. Also great for combo, unless it.
Oh, dude, but heartbreaking when you see a really good card with this card and you don't take it. You pretty much know you'll never see it again because it's now at the bottom of your deck.
Stug 3F. What do you think?
I hate it.
You hate this card?
Man, I guess it's too... Dude, I don't know, like, every time people play this against me, I'm always like, whatever, dude.
This card is a solid 3 in my opinion. It's like it's a mainstay unit that is, it's a 2-cost 2/3 tank, and it has 1 operating cost, which is a decent basic stat line. There's a French unit that just has that with no abilities that's, like, at least okay in draft.
Okay, so, you know, it is bias or whatever, but whenever I see this card, it's usually played by the person I'm beating. Or eventually win. Like, I don't know, man, what it is. Like, its health isn't great. It's probably it's like a removal spell that only targets tanks. Like, maybe infantry, but...
Card over several other 2-drops. I don't think it's, like, at the top tier, but it's, like... It's a hero of the commoners or whatever.
Okay, sure. Of, like, all the average cards, this is, like, a good average card. But I'll often just take infantry. Like, I can take a 3/6 for 3 and just dominate this stupid thing.
Hey, the 3/6 costs 3. This costs 2.
Yeah, but, like, are you going to win the game because of the tempo gained by this guy? I don't know. I don't think so, but...
That's fair. Beer4564, thanks for the follow. Alright. Sudden Strike, 2 cost. Destroy a unit that costs 2 credits or less.
It's removal,
it's
so
like I think a 3 in constructed and a 2 in draft. I say it's a 3 in constructed because aggro is really good right now, and this is a good counter aggro card. The problem is that it, like, unlike other removal, it just becomes completely... Like, if you have, like, a card that does, like, 2 damage, that's not good against a late game unit, but it can be the final blow. This card is straight up dead against late game units. It does nothing against them. It doesn't even do anything against mid game units.
So, it's better in constructed than it is in draft. And the reason is because right now constructed is aggro, and it is relevant in basically every deck. Hilariously can't target the Alpine guys, but like this kills a T80, okay?
Yeah.
For 2, you kill a T80. That's so amazing. This card is very good. I think 3 because it's not exciting, but I do think that when I first started playing this game, I avoided this card like the plague. I thought it was stupid. And I've matured to realize that this is actually one of the better cards in the game. Like, not like top tier best, but this is a card that you should not just pass by. Now, in draft, though, there's no rule that says anyone even has to play 2-drops. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't draft low-cost decks that often anymore. Like, I tend to just go straight value, and most value starts around 3 with, like I'll play a couple 2s. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not going to let someone tempo me out. Like, I love the American guy that's like a 2/3, that goes up frontline and gets 3/4. That's like one of my favorite units in the game. But if this will kill that guy, and I'll be sad about it. But it's like whatever. Okay, I guess it got him. Do you see what I'm trying to say? Like.
Yeah. So this is like best case scenario 1-for-1, and unlike other removal, the best case scenario is a 1-for-1 for something that costs the same as you. So there's not like the situation where you're hitting way above
or
your
less,
weight,
yeah.
Put a bunch of buffs on somebody.
Yeah. Oh, and this is actually a hilariously good card against the token deck.
Yeah, when they're like, oh, I'm gonna like buff this light infantry to be a 7/7, and then you're like, die.
Oh yeah, I've seen even bigger numbers. I mean, they can get nuts. And yes, oh,
Like Unity is strength.
oh, this also kills the American guy that can be like an 11-12.
Oh yeah, that's true. We'll discuss that guy later.
Sure, but that guy's very good.
Got nerfed. He's a draft
Did he?
hero, though.
Yeah,
he's 2/2 base instead of 2/3 now.
He's 2/2.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Well, but listen, I hate to mention cards that aren't Germany, but you have to mention the good cards because like those cards are defining a meta, right? So this card is like, it's a solid okay. Average is what I'd give it for both. Like it's removal spell, and it feels bad in draft because sometimes people don't draft cheap stuff. Like they just go 3 or higher, and
right.
you know, whatever.
I don't know. Maybe this guy isn't. Maybe this guy is a 3 in draft though, just because there are a few cards. I don't know if the opponent does play that one guy and he becomes like a 10/10, and then you blow him up with this. That's pretty sweet.
I've done it. I picked this. I don't try to get more than like a couple of these things, but I will definitely pick it.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't know. I think I will actually stick at the 2 for draft though, because I would still draft almost any other German removal above this.
Of course, but you don't.
This is a super low priority.
I would probably take this card over your Stug. So, I don't know, man. I just maybe it would be someday we're gonna have to like draft and one of us just watch the other player. It'd be fun to see how we play and all that stuff. But
yeah, we could even do like a. What would also be funny is having like some kind of drafting competition where like multiple people draft and like multi-twitch it or whatever, and like see who can, get the furthest.
Yeah.
I guess there'd be like a risk of stream sniping if the people played each other.
Sure. Let's go to the next one.
I don't know. It's also like not all that hard to win drafts, so like it might just be that the people would never face each other and both win.
Yeah, I mean, well, and so if you win, sometimes it can create bad habits that you think you're doing something right, but you're actually not. And I've learned that by playing against you in Constructed and realizing, oh, this deck actually isn't as good as I thought it was because now I'm playing a deck that's faster than me or whatever, or controls better than me.
I have a German Italian Alpine deck that I've been playing around with it, but I think Alpine is just not really there competitive. And I actually got to Field Marshal with it this season, but it doesn't really hang at the top tiers.
Right. Yeah.
It's good enough to get to Field Marshal, but it's not good enough to like consistently win against the people that you're going to meet up there. At least my version isn't. Maybe someone else has figured out a better version of that deck.
Yeah.
But you gotta know your limitations. There's some stuff that you can really like that can be really fun, that can be something that you want to play, but it might not necessarily be the most competitive. All right, that has nothing to do with this card.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Let's just
Suppression, 2 cost. All enemy units in the support line have -3 attack until the start of your next turn. What do you think?
I don't like this card.
I don't like this, but sometimes people play it on me, and I'm like, oh man, that was a really good situation to use this.
That's exactly what I was about to say. I've had moments where someone does this to me, and I'm like, ouch. But I struggle to think that I lose because of it. And sometimes I think they're like grasping at straws because like I have some huge advantage on them, and they're just like slowing me down. Like, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, because usually when this makes me sad, it's because I have like 2 bombers and an airplane or something, and like they play this, and I'm like, ah, damn it! Like this was the turn I was gonna like kill them, and now I can't. So I don't know, man. Like the situational cards are never good. And this card is situational. Like you have to have a follow up to it.
Example of a lose less card.
Sure.
Like, the situation where this is good is where like you're in big trouble, and I guess no, that's not fair. That's not fair, because you can also use it in a situation where you're on offense and like this prevents them from clearing your front line and lets you keep up the pressure. But also sometimes you use it and it's just like you were saying, oh, I'm gonna slow down their bombers for a turn or whatever, but it doesn't actually get me out. I need other stuff to save me.
Right, and it is costing a card to do, so you better do something to profit from this. I don't. It's just it comes back to being situational, and I don't like situational cards.
It can have a big effect though, and I've seen it happen. I've been hit by it. I've been unhappy by it, but I'm not gonna recommend that everybody go out and play it. I think that there are a lot of situations where it's like, oh, this like debuffs one unit and is annoying, but not.
I just thought of something. So in Hearthstone, there was cards that okay, you know the Japanese guy that does kill something that has 2 power?
Yeah.
That combos with this card.
Yeah, it does.
If we see in the future more cards like that, then this card gets better.
Yeah, that's
So
true. So Japan has that, and it also has the one that kills a unit that has 3 attack or less. It's an event.
yeah, Hearthstone has a card that says like all things with 2 power die, and if you played this card and that card, that would feel pretty great. So you know it costs you 2 cards, but if you kill like 3 things, then you got card advantage. Uh, and that would be a fun combo and could come in this. The combo exists in this game, so probably that would continue in the future.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I'd give this like I don't know. I'd give this like probably a 2 or a 3.
You're so generous. I give it a 2. Like my description of 2 is play it but not happy about it. Man, I'd pick this card, but
maybe two's right in that.
yeah.
All right, you 375, 2 cost. Your enemy discards a random card with cost 5 or less. What do you think?
I'll give it a 3 because like whatever. It's a 1-for-1. I was just gonna say it's bad on paper because you're paying 2 for something that they didn't even do anyway. So you're paying 2, they paid 0. You both traded a card, and it's random, and it's limited to 5 or less, so their bomb might be safe.
Yeah, so you can trade up, but you can't trade that far up.
And you're the one trading. Like you're paying 2, they pay nothing. This card is. I'm not gonna say trap card. It's not bad. Like I'd actually give it like a 3, but like it's not like a. It's definitely not a great card. It probably will never. Okay, here's an argument. So I'm noticing like in some decks like that aren't aggro decks, especially mid-range decks. I feel like you could play a deck where literally every card in your deck is a 2-for-1. So if you use this card on that person, you're inherently like gaining a 2-for-1 off denying them a 2-for-1. I've also had people do the airplane that puts things back into my hand and then play this card. And that feels bad sometimes because it's like, ah, damn, like they actually will get your thing. Germany has a strategy where they like deny you card draw, and then the next thing you know, you only have like 1 or 2 cards in your hand. And then if they can bounce things and make you discard, it feels horrible because it's like, oh wow, they tempoed me out and then took my card away from me.
In chess, a basic principle says that it's favorable to trade while you're ahead, and it's unfavorable to trade while you're behind. This is true in many games. A similar thing can be true for this card, where if it's like I have 5 cards and my opponent has 2, this card is excellent. But if it's the other way around and I have 2 cards and my opponent has 5, this card is likely very weak.
Yeah, and I don't want to call it a win more card because it's not that, but it plays into a strategy that a deck can do. I've lost to like. Germany's very good at mid-range against other mid-range decks, and this is actually pretty solid in those decks because you're denying their card draw while also taking their cards in their hand, so they literally are just sitting there with nothing in their hand. It's kind of a, I don't know. I say like a 3. I don't. Do you disagree?
That seems fair.
It's in draft. It's not a bad card if you don't get too many 2-drops. So this is what I'm saying though. Like I'm the kind of person that when I play Germany and I'm playing like a mid-range non-aggro deck, I pick cards like this and I pick Sudden Strike because I would rather have a spell at turn 2 often than a creature. Because I'd rather on turn 3 play like a 3/6 and kill their 2-drop and then still have a creature in play.
Yeah.
That's just my philosophy.
It's also like, you know, it isn't going to be I guess there's the Doom scenario where you play it and their entire hand is expensive and it doesn't do anything. But most of the time, this is going to be a 1-for-1.
That shouldn't happen. So if you take what is it, Convoy? It's a card. You draw 2 cards. If you take Convoy with this card, you've denied them 2 cards in theory. Right? So there is something to that, and this game does have a lot of 2-for-1s if you look for them. And this card kind of like can slow that down. I've come to turn on this. I used to think this card wasn't good at all, but I've come around to actually I've lost to this card, and it made me realize like, oh wow, he took like my best Russian infantry unit. Like I was gonna use that unit to 2-for-1 someone, and now I can't do it. I can't do it. Like so, It was a big deal, and he paid 2 to like deny me a 2-for-1.
That's a good point.
Anyway, I'm done with that card. I don't know if you have
Down with
thoughts.
that card. Okay, let's move on. Wirbelwind, 2 cost, 2/2 blitz. While in frontline, enemy air units enter the battlefield pinned. 1 operations. I'll be straight up. I think this card is not good. I think this is actually one of the worst cards of its rarity in the game.
I agree. I avoid it. I picked it one time because I kind of like wanted to believe, and it did nothing. It was unexciting. It doesn't trade well. I don't know what this card's doing. It's
so
like
this card's ability is so it's 2 cost, 2/2 blitz with 1 operation. That's the same as the 35T that can go to 0 operation cost. But instead, this has an ability that is much narrower and, in my opinion, worse, which is while in frontline, enemy air units enter the battlefield pinned. Now, sometimes this ability can be really sick and punishing, but also there's times where it's just off. And additionally, your opponent gets to like decide, you know, am I going to play the air unit and get pinned or no? Whereas with the other thing, the initiative is with you instead of with the opponent, where it's like, I'm going to design my deck to enable this or I'm not. And I would rather be the one with the initiative for this sort of thing. Yes, it can lock someone down in the right situation, but like things, you know, if someone has a handful of air units and you have this, like great, but you know, is that going to happen reliably? I don't think so.
Yeah, and like if you play the air unit pin, does it just unpin on your turn next turn anyway? So doesn't that only counter units that have blitz?
It depends. If you're pinned while you can't do anything, you stay pinned. But if you're pinned while you can do something, then you unpin next turn.
So if you didn't have blitz, you would be pinned like 2 turns?
No, because the first turn you're not really pinned because you're summoning sick, right?
Okay. But this thing pins you when you enter the battlefield, so...
Right, so you're pinned, but like the pin is removed when it actually causes you to miss.
So it does kind of stop you for 2 turns then.
Yeah.
One
other thing that I'll say about pinning is that if you have is that tanks are better against pinning because if they attack but could still theoretically move, like they hadn't moved, they just attacked, then they do clear the pin.
Right. Whatever. I don't like this card. I agree with you completely.
Yeah, this is bad. This is one of the worst. This is one of the worst cards of its rarity in the game, in my opinion.
And Germany has so many good cards in that rarity. So.
Yeah, I think this is bad in draft and bad in constructed.
Yeah.
I would give this. I mean, like it's not totally awful. I would give it like probably a 2.
Sure. Because whatever.
But yeah, like you were saying, you know, a 2 card is one that you're not happy about playing. Even in the situation where for some reason this was like what I wanted to put in to like try to counter air decks, I would still not be happy about having this card in my deck in other matchups.
Yeah, and the fact it has to be in the front line is like super punishing. Like maybe if it was backline, I'd consider it, but like even then, I don't know. Why would this thing be in the backline? I just don't get it, like personally. But
yeah,
anyway,
it doesn't really do a good job in my opinion. Let's go to the next card. 3 cost, 15 centimeter auto cannon, 1 or auto whatever. I'm not gonna try to pronounce that. 1 operation cost, 3/2 artillery. When you deploy a unit, deal 2 damage to the enemy HQ.
I think it's canon, but yeah, this card's like a 4 or 5. I mean, it depends what you rate the combo deck. This is the combo card we keep discussing. This is one of the defining cards of constructed. Yeah, this is
play a very large number of infantry in 1 turn and just kill them that way. I think this is a bad card normally, or it's like a medium card normally, but in the combo it's amazing.
I think it's actually in my current draft deck, but like I picked it because like I didn't like the other cards, and I was like, well, whatever. It's a reasonably cheap bot mortar.
I think in normal play this is like probably a 3 or something, but it gets better if you're going for the combo.
I remember
combo, it's like a 5.
The reason I picked it actually is because I was making a combined arms deck. And for 3, that's not terrible to have a combined, you know, something other than infantry and tank. So whatever, I took it.
But I'd rather have a Nurgle Warfare normally.
Oh right, okay, yeah. I had to think about what the hell that was. Oh yeah, sure. I mean, whatever. It's strong. We discussed it's strong. It's a combo deck in constructed and in draft. Like probably take something else, but like sometimes it's this or like the Heinz card or whatever, and okay, whatever, take this, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, Fast Heinz. Yeah, for a draft, this could be. It's not terrible, but like, 2 defense is not that good. 3 offense on artillery is pretty good if you can keep it up, but 2 defense means it might be hard. It can die
Ah,
after 1 hit to like gunship missions and stuff.
actually, too, its ability is pretty good in draft, man. I killed someone with that ability because he was starting to play like bigger tanks than me, and I just kept throwing crap into the front line, just slowing him down because he couldn't like beat through, and literally like just by playing units, he was dying and he died.
Interesting.
Yeah, inevitability is strong. It's a form of evasion. Remember we talked about
The
there's not
problem
much.
that I have with it though is that it's only inevitability if they don't just kill your thing, and there's a lot of things that can kill this thing.
Sure, and that's why removal's king, and maybe people aren't drafting enough removal. You know. Let's go to the next one.
All right, let's move to the next one. Next one, 33rd Panzer Grenadier. 4/3 infantry, 3 cost, 1 operations, deployment, give friendly tanks +1 attack this turn.
I'll give him a 3, but like honestly, I would take the card right next to him over this guy any day of the week.
Yeah, this guy I think is also a 3. He's maybe he's a 2. I think he's like
He might be a 2.
I don't know.
Well,
maybe there's like a tank focused deck that's strong. And, this
yeah.
guy is like very average. You don't feel that unhappy. Like if you play him just for stats, he's not horrible, but 3 defense isn't that great for this type of unit.
Okay, here's a counter. Here's a reason why he's not good. Because that tank probably needs to have 0 activation cost, or he's like kind of slow, right?
That's true.
Because you don't want to play him as a 4-drop.
He's one that's a 3 cost 4/3, where it buffs only 1 unit, but it also reduces its operations cost by 1. I like that one a lot more.
Right, because the tank probably costs at least 1 activation, and you just spent 3 for this guy. So you need like 4 just to move a probably weak tank, right? You need 5 to move a decent tank, and maybe that tank needs another like 4 just to go from backline to frontline. So I don't know, man. And he doesn't trade very well. Like the 3 health is okay, whatever. I'm not feeling it with this guy. I won't pick him that often.
Okay, let's go to the next one. 980th Volksgrenadier.
I love this guy.
So this guy is, I'd say this guy's a 4. 4 in draft, probably a 3 in constructed.
Yeah, maybe even worse in constructed, to be honest with you.
This guy is just a big chunk of stats, and that type of unit is very strong in draft play in particular.
Yeah, this is actually a good talking point. We don't want to keep talking, but in draft, big beefy units are way better than in constructed. Agree?
Yes, like this guy's boring. So he's vanilla, no ability, nothing interesting, but he's a lot of stats, and you just plunk him down there, and your opponent, a lot of removal doesn't work on this guy. It's difficult to kill him. He trades favorably with a lot of units your opponent might play, even at his cost.
Mm-hmm. And that tank you said you like, the 2/3, this guy is like, hey, what's up? I'm infantry. You don't get double damage against me.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, and if this guy, just moves into the front line and is blocking you, a lot of small units are going to have a lot of difficulty through.
He's amazing at just like, this is the kind of unit you throw in the front line. He probably dies, but like they're so busy wasting resources on him that you're like progressing your strategy. Which
you're getting the advantage.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Airstrike. When the enemy deploys a unit, return it to hand, and enemy discards a random card.
This one's tricky for me because I actually play this card in decks.
I'd probably give this guy like a 4 because this has 2 good things. First off, it's tempo, but then also is card advantage. Or I'm sorry, it's not card advantage. It's tempo that doesn't lose you.
So right. So if you wanted to describe what tempo is, usually tempo is tempo with the loss of card advantage, or like you generally lose card advantage using tempo. Over the long run. Like, the idea of tempo is you use tempo and you win, or your tempo doesn't win you the game, and then you lose because now they're just dropping more stuff than you have, and you lose because of card advantage or whatever. So, but this card is tempo, and you don't lose card advantage, which rarely happens. And
yeah, like compare this to that other one that just like discards a random card from their hand. This discards a random card from their hand and it sets them back.
So that the 2 cost, the from the deep, I gave it like a 5. This thing is like definitely not a 5, but I actually think it's similar because it's like you play this card and then the next turn you play the Tiger Tank. You know that whatever they play is going away. And dude, okay, this card has won me so many games because like people do like a 2-card combo. So they play like an airplane and then they like want to play a card that like buffs the airplane and maybe gives it like blitz, and then the airplane like kills my stuff or kills me. I've played this card, they play the airplane, it puts it back in their hand, then they discard the combo card, and then then they don't play the airplane again because now the combo doesn't work for them. And I've had, yeah, I don't know if you have a thought on that, but like that's been huge for me.
Yeah, the whole aspect of this is one of those situations where being a countermeasure can actually increase a card's effectiveness because it messes with your opponent's plan.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah.
If the opponent spends something expensive and it uses all their resources for the turn, like, oops, guess you just like didn't do anything this turn. That's a lot of tempo you just lost.
Yeah, or you were gonna play an artillery that has blitz to kill my unit, but now it's like back in your hand and you're out of you. If you play the same artillery again, you don't have the resources you need to kill my unit anymore. So now the whole plan you just had is gone. And some random card in your hand is now gone that maybe you needed to win the game. There's no cost restriction either, so they might. I've had people discard like very powerful cards to this 3-drop.
Yeah, this is a strong card. 4?
4, sure. It's not a 5.
Blitzkrieg. 3 cost. Friendly units in the front line have +3 attack and operate for 1 less until the end of the turn.
I've lost to this card.
Yeah, this is like a finishing blow card.
Yeah, this is like you play like 1 or something, and then like you eventually draw it, and then you're like, all right, here I go, I win. So yeah, I don't have a lot to say. I actually don't pick this card like ever, because I don't like those kind of cards. I want removal, I want bombs, and I want like card advantage. This is none of those things. So I might take it if it's like super late in the draft and I have like nothing else to choose, but mostly I avoid it. Agree?
I
or
would give this card a 2 or a 3 in draft, but it would be a 3 or a 4 in constructed. Because if you like,
I agree.
You know, if you're reliably having this, I'd probably give this a 4 in constructed.
Sure.
Because if you're reliably having this be your like finishing blow, or like you can count on it, it can really affect like that can be a solid strategy if you're like really planning around that.
Mm-hmm. So tokens.
Yeah, much more so than it can be in draft, where it's like, well, this could be a cool finishing blow, but kind of everything has to line up. I'm probably not going to have a deck that's going to exploit it to the fullest.
Yep. Yeah, when I lose this card, it's pretty much constructed, and it's probably tokens. I tend to play decks that are weak against tokens also, so maybe they just finished me, but I would have lost anyway, so like maybe that card didn't win them the game anyway. But
I have definitely had some games, though, where it's like, oh, this gave me that extra reach that I needed to just end the game here instead of giving the opponent a chance to come back or a chance to retake the front line or whatever it is.
Yeah, and my Brit deck plays cards like this, so I totally get it, but yeah.
It can also be really good if it's like, maybe you have a removal that you're going to use to clear their guard unit, and then suddenly your front line is really dangerous.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's do breakthrough.
All right, let's move on. What's the next card here?
I got
breakthrough. Remove guard, ambush, and smoke screen from all enemy units.
I don't like it. I never pick it.
This card's really bad, in my opinion.
It's like 1s across the board. If this card costs like 1, it still would be bad, but it'd be not as bad. Also, the card Magic?
This card is good, but it isn't the current meta.
The card Magic lets you choose between this ability or a different ability, and I pick that card. But I don't pick this card.
To be fair, the card Magic also only applies to 1 unit. But usually you don't need to remove guard, ambush, and smoke screen from a lot of things.
Nope.
So like having a distributed effect is like not getting you so much advantage here, I feel, relative to Magic.
I agree. I have nothing else to say. That's exactly right.
This card's bad. Yeah. Eagle Claws. 2 damage to all units in the enemy support line. What do you think?
It's a thematic card, like I was saying earlier. All of the removal for Germany tends to be aggressive. This is an aggressive removal. It's like the idea that they're not in the front line, they're in the back line. or support line. Sorry. Okay, in draft, I gotta say it's probably a 4 because
Sorry, I got cut off, dude. What would you say? It sounded like you were gonna say 4 or 5.
I think it's a 4.
Yeah.
I don't think I could give this a 5. It's removal, but like it's situational. You have to admit, like it's sometimes just bad, but like often you'll at least get a kill of some sort with it for relatively fair cost. So, and sometimes you just blow people out with it. And okay, so the thing that makes this card insane though is when you draw multiples. You kind of almost want to have 4 in your deck if you're gonna pick them, because like if you get 2 of these in your hand, it's often very devastating. Agree?
Yeah.
I've gotten a lot of kind of "Are you kidding me's" off this card.
Oh yeah, me too, dude. Also, insane against token decks. Really strong actually against against British era. This can be good against the current Japanese aggro. This can actually be quite good.
Do you think though it's like a 3 in constructed? Like I don't actually see this card too often in constructed. I know you've played it, and like you're definitely more free to play than me. Like I'll confess, I've spent some money on packs, so you know, I think this is like an incredible free to play like card and not as good constructed. Like when you have all the cards, am I wrong or like?
Yeah, it depends. I do think there's a good argument for like, oh, why would I want this over tactical strike?
Well,
a lot of the times I only need to kill one thing, and the extra damage is going to matter more than hitting more units. But I think this has a spot.
I've played my primary construct deck was Russia and Germany, and I've tried this card like even just like one of them or 2 of them in the deck as a token counter, because I told you I'm weak to tokens, and it's not a bad card for other things. But I ended up just taking that bomber, the 2-cost Fury bomber, and it did like the same thing and did other things, you know. So like I kind of got like I don't like Eagle Claw. Like it's not a bad card. It's average. Like I'm not dogging it. I'm just saying like when you own.
I think this is a better one for draft than for constructed.
Yeah, and you are not making a mistake playing the card in constructed. I'm just saying if you own like every card, I just think like there's like you could be doing other things and like whatever, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm good.
All right. So like maybe a 3 in constructed.
Yeah.
Draft and like that. Flam Panzer, 3 cost, 3/4 deployment, destroy target enemy unit with cost 1 or less. 2 operations.
Can I say 5 in constructed?
Yeah, probably. I don't know that I'd give it a 5, but I'd probably give it a 4. It might be a 5 at least in the current meta.
In my Russia deck, I play 2 because I just honestly can't fit more, and sometimes it doesn't do anything against some people, but in my
extremely strong 1-drops in the game right now.
In my German deck, I'll play 3, and I don't feel too bad about it.
There's all those 0/4s that have great passive abilities. There's the American one that buffs anyone who moves to the front line. There's that stupid British paratrooper that constantly gains stats.
Yeah, the Russian one.
There's all the crazy stuff Japan has. Japan has like 3 different good 1-cost aggro units at least.
When you oh my gosh, so even the control decks and the combo decks play the Japanese 1-drop that draws them cards. I love killing that guy with this guy. Oh my gosh, every time.
They buff him to try to make it so that you have to hit him with multiple things.
And they'll like spend resources to move him into the front line because they want you to hit him, and it's like ha ha ha. So you wasted one to put him out, you wasted another one to put him in the front line. Maybe you put some buff on him, and you think you're gonna get your value back because the logic is, hey, if they kill it, I'll get my card back. Right. Nope, this guy feels great.
And you have a body left afterwards, so it's such a favorable trade.
Yeah, I mean he's a 4 for sure, but like I could see a 5. Only because that's just the way the game is being played right now, and I don't see that changing. Games tend to get faster, not slower. So, man, I don't know. Like, I think he's great. And if there's more cards in the card pool, this guy just gets better. In draft, he actually can be not great though. Like sometimes on draft, you just play him.
Than draft, honestly.
I agree. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, I have a lot of times where I'll like have 3, like not 3, but I'll have like 2 of these guys in my hand, and I'll just play one like on turn 3 every time because it's like, you know what? I haven't seen a 1-drop. It's been 3 turns. Let's just move on.
Yeah,
and I might.
Someone might think you can just play this guy for stats, but the problem is the operation costs are kind of nasty.
Yes, he's like a control card. Like, you often don't want to actually... I often will just have him sitting around, like, doing nothing, until they move up, and then I'll attack, right? Because
and then in the back, he's still threatening it, so it's like, hey, this means you can't play that bomber unless you get the front line cleared.
Yeah, and then a lot of...
my whole turn to move up and hit you.
A lot of times I then use them as a roadblock, so, like, I know that they have a superior unit on the board, but I'll pay the 2 to, like, keep it busy, and maybe the 3 damage it takes means it's open to removal the next turn. Like, he's just a role player. Like, it's a good card, though. It's amazing.
All right, let's move on to the MEBF 109E.
I don't know. What do you think, man?
You know, in theory, this guy should be pretty good. In practice, though, those operation costs are nasty on this one, I think.
Yeah, right. Because I'll play the 4/4s, like attacks for 4, right, and 2 operation costs, and that means you kill someone in 5 turns. But because this guy costs 3, it's like, oh, okay, well, it's more turns. You know what I mean? Like, he's not a burn card. He's like, his offense isn't spectacular where like he's killing everything. Like, I don't know, man. Like, when I look at this guy, I like want to like him, but like he's not beefy enough to do anything special to me.
He is kind of good for like preventing early bomber aggression. I don't know. I give this guy probably like a 2 in constructed, maybe a 3 in draft, but maybe a 2 in draft, honestly.
I don't pick him highly.
He's at least decent. He's underperformed for me.
Agreed. He's one of those cards that like he's trying to be beefy, but I feel like he's failing at the beefy role. And a deal breaker for me, like the 4 health is huge. Like, he actually doesn't die very easily to removal, but like, does anyone like? I don't know. He's situational. He's okay. Like 3 or 2, you know.
I'd rather have the 3-cost 3/6 infantry. I'll say that.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. So like a 3 or 2, whatever. And he's not. I never see people play him in constructed.
Nerval were for 42. This guy's an ace. This guy's probably a 4.
Yeah. So anything that enters the battlefield and does something else automatically can be card advantage, and it's just pure value. So even if they kill it like the turn you play it, you probably did something useful with the 1 damage. So
one downside of this ability is that it only applies to a So this is 3-cost 2/2 artillery deployment. Deal 2 damage to deal 1 damage to an enemy unit. The problem with this card is that the 1 damage is only to a unit,
not HQ.
So it doesn't have the flexibility of the 0 or of the Katyusha, which has similar like abilities to immediately do damage when you play it.
Yeah.
But the upside of this is that you do end up with a 2/2 body with 1 operation cost afterwards on artillery, which can be quite annoying for an opponent. And that 1 damage, you know, if you do get a pick off, like not only did you kill a unit, but you also have a body that's going to be something that the opponent really does want to deal with, unless they're fine with you just getting some nice artillery for a relatively cheap operation cost as well.
I think in constructed there's better cards, but I have to give him a 3.
Constructed, I see people playing this.
I have to give him a 3 in constructed only because there's cards that do what he does better. It's hard. I'm not trying to be critical of this card because it's a very good card, but like I feel like there's a point where like he's high tier, but like there's higher stuff. Like, I don't know, man. Like,
would you say this guy's like 3 in constructed, 4 in draft then?
Yeah. It's a loving 3. Like, this isn't like I have to play him.
I'd probably let him keep his I'd probably let him keep his 4 for constructed as well by my evaluation.
Yeah, and there are a lot of 1 health units in constructed, so hey, I don't know. Maybe I'm being mean.
The current meta is on his side though. It is possible that if we were seeing like a more big unit mid range or like ramp type meta, this guy wouldn't look as good.
Also, come on, like it's tough because like I think the Katyusha thing's just like a little bit better, and it's like they're kind of competing for slots. But I don't know, man. Like, I don't think you can play if you play this guy in constructed. I don't think you're like upset about it. Like, he's a great card. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not like, oh darn, you know, I have to play Nerval for.
Can I give him a 3.5?
situations where it's like, you know, this was like decent, but it wasn't that much value.
Yeah, like a 3.5. Can I do that? You know?
Sure. Let's say okay. So you'll give him a 3.5 in constructed and a 4 in draft.
Yeah.
Be a little more generous and just give him a straight 4.
Sure.
All right. Let's move on to the Pack 38. 3 cost, 1/3 artillery with ambush, and it does triple damage to tanks.
Man.
This guy's like a 2 in my opinion. It's like
A 2 in constructed or draft?
I'd say both.
I think you could get
a either way. I'm not gonna say he's garbage. Like
ambush is okay. Like, and you can buff him, and it's okay. I think I'd give him a 3 in draft.
Okay.
And in constructed, I'm just trying to think of how mean I want to be. Because like the 3/6 is just better. Like, you know, this guy is not beating your 3/6. Like, the triple damage against tanks is okay. Like, actually, he's hilariously good against the T-80. But like, yeah, like I'd say 2 constructed and 3 draft.
Hey, someone in chat here, Scientiavore says, just as a heads up for Sploosh, if you still need to get Germany to FM, but you don't want to ruin your rankings, you can still do it by playing unscored.
Oh, okay, I'll do that.
Thanks for the tips, Scientiavore.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so then let's go to the next part. Panzer 38T, 3 cost, 2/2, deployment, draw card.
Okay, this guy is the free-to-play hero. Okay, because like you play 4 of these when you're like free-to-play and like your deck's new, right? Am I wrong?
Yep.
I have found now that I kind of own like all the German cards that the 4-drop tank is infinitely better than this guy.
Yeah, it's true. There is, so we'll get to this. There is another card that's basically the same concept but better.
Infinitely. Like, it's not even fair how much better. Okay? And so then this guy just like, I might sneak one in. And so
this guy is like not good. Once you have like some better options, like you were discussing, one better option in particular, this guy becomes not very good in constructed, but in draft he's still like a very solid.
I'll give him a 3 in constructed, and it's kind of a loving 3. I've seen combo decks like I think the combo deck sometimes plays this guy just to get to the combo and delay, right? He might sneak in 2 damage to the base to make the combo work better. But in draft though, I might be a 4. Like, I think I just take him every. I don't think he's a bomb, but like he's close, right? Do you?
Card advantage is a useful thing to have.
It can be card advantage, but worst case scenario, you just get your card back and you're doing something.
Yeah.
He's aggressively costed at 3, so he gives you something to do in the early turns, and he gets you through. Anytime in draft you're getting through your deck means you're probably going to get to that sweet card you drafted. You know, you might have a tiger that this guy's going to get you to, and you win the game. So, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, like a good way to think about him is like, you know, he doesn't have that much of a cost to play, you know, and he's going to get you to your other stuff faster. And then, like, maybe you get something valuable with the little body that you get as well.
Yeah, and he's the reason that I don't play the 1s and 2s as aggressively, because he might not trade perfectly, but he'll help out with that and progress me.
Yeah, let's say he goes 1-for-1 with a cheaper unit that the enemy played, and you got a card and they didn't. That's a very good trade.
Yeah, and card selection. Maybe because you drew a card, now you have better choices for your further turns. Anyway, yeah, good card.
And even if you don't have like the trade, you know, maybe he goes and hits the enemy base.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe he just stalls them and they have to deal with him in the front line. You know, there's a lot of ways this guy can get value out of the body.
Yep.
He is a tank, so that has some extra nice little value. I think he's very solid.
He's a good blocker. It's a strategy that I've gotten good at where I am losing the board position because they have played like super awesome units. And I just throw guys like this in front of the front line to keep them so busy that they can't kill the planes that I have or bombers or whatever. And I win because cards like this just slow them down.
Yeah, and in the meantime, your back line stuff is like hitting their base,
Yep.
or getting value out of like bombers and artillery hitting their units and whittling them down.
Yep. And for the low cost of 1 activation.
All right, let's go to the next. Let's go to the next card here. Panzer III-L, 3 cost, 2 operations, 3/5 blitz, +1 attack for each non-tank unit type you control.
He's just good, man. I mean, 4. He's not a bomb in draft at all, but he's like you pick him this like unless there's something better, which
Yeah, this is a good example of an elite. It's just kind of a better version of a non-elite. There's a card that's a 4 cost, 4/5 blitz, with 2 operation cost. So this, if you have anything that isn't a tank, is a 4/5 blitz for 3 instead of 4, and it has higher upside.
Yeah, it's like just better because it is. Like there's not even a discussion, you know. It can be worse, but like even then, it still only costs you 3. So oh well, you know.
Yep. Elite rarity equals better then.
Yeah.
All right, let's move to the next one. Oh, I guess we should give this guy numbers.
4, I said 4/4.
Yeah, 4 in both.
Yeah.
Great. Next up, reinforcements, 3 cost, fully repair all friendly units and draw a card.
I draft this aggressively. Well, okay. When I say aggressively, I don't mean like I insta pick it or anything or over other things, but like I take this card.
Yeah.
The reason why? Draw a card. That's the reason.
Yeah.
Anytime you are milling your deck to like get better cards, and obviously repairing all units was insane. I've had some good moments where like I purposely wound like my entire army, and then I'm just like, hey, watch what happens next. You know.
Yeah, repair is pretty decent, and you draw a card.
So. It's all friendly units.
Pretty sweet.
Yeah.
I'd say maybe a 3 in constructed, 4 in draft type card.
Yes.
Alright, Stug 3G, 3 cost, 1 operation, 3/3. Damage from Stug 3G ignores heavy armor.
I don't like this guy.
I think this guy's pretty weak. I would give this guy probably a 2.
Yes.
In both. The problem with this guy is that damage from Stug 3G ignores heavy armor is not a very good ability. Most of the heavy armor units are already things like most heavy armor units are already going to be big enough that 3 damage isn't enough to actually kill them. So the fact that you ignore their armor is very medium.
I think I can only think of 2 units right now that exist in the entire game that's relevant. One is like the Russian bomber that's like a 3 health, 1 armor, and the other one is the Italian tank that's a 3/3 with 1 armor. This guy does not trade well at all for what he does. Every time because I'm still new to this game, every time I see this card, I read it as double damage 2 armor, and then I reread it, and I'm sad.
Yeah.
Like,
this guy's just really not. He's not what you want, I don't think.
You know what I love about this guy? When I play the 3/6 infantry and I see this guy on my opponent's side, and I'm like, oh, sweet, I'll take that 2 for 1.
Yeah, exactly. And like, yes, he's a tank with only 1 operating cost, and that's kind of nice. But the stats aren't amazing, and the ability is really...
It's not exciting. He's like a really bad T-80.
Like, compare this to the Flampanzer, and you'll be sad.
Yeah.
Alright, Stug 4. 3 cost, 3/2, 3/4 Fury. Deals double damage against tanks. What do you think about this?
This guy's solid.
Yeah.
I don't get excited to play him either, but like I'm super not like upset either. Like this is again another unit that like trades kind of evenly but more expensively with the 3/6 infantry unit. And I'm sorry to keep bringing it up, but like that's why I pick the 3/6 guy and I don't pick these units. Like because like the big body's just gonna beat these guys, and like I'll give him like a 2 or 3, but like I don't pick this guy aggressively at all. The Fury's cute though, and he's definitely the kind of unit I'd probably try to kill like quick, like so it doesn't do something insane. But
being able to double tap the HQ for 6 is pretty nice, but it costs a lot of resources to do it.
Any combos with like Juggernaut or something.
Yeah.
So
buff him really annoying.
I'll give him a 3 because like he's just fine. Like, I don't. Do you disagree?
Nah.
Yeah.
He's an average. He's like a kind of average big unit. Not the best, but not the worst.
Yeah.
All right. Tactical strike, 3 cost. Operation deals 2 damage to a unit, deals 4 damage with units in the support line. What do you think about this one?
Man, am I crazy to say I want to say 5?
You say 5?
Okay, so hear me out. In Constructed, this card is the reason I play Germany. Because I've noticed that 4 health is like this extremely common number that's better than 3. Remember earlier I was saying how like 3 is this weird line? Well, 4 is more than 3, and a lot of the units I play in my decks have 4 health on purpose because, especially planes and stuff, like planes at 4 are like super hard to kill. This thing shoots at planes. And artillery, there's a lot of artillery that like hangs out in like the 4 range. And so, man, I don't know, like this thing, I'm trying to think of other units I use this a lot on. I know there's tons, like at the T80, I'll kill a T80 with this, and I'm like not upset about it.
Yeah, no, that's great.
I don't know, man. Like there's just tons of stuff. Like this card's really good. There's air units are popular and it's flexible. Like maybe it does enough damage that like one of your healthy like a 3/6 can't kill a 5/5, but a 3/6 can attack after this thing hits it. And it's not like I'm spending 2 cards because I still have my 3/6 at the end of that attack, you know?
Yeah, I wouldn't give this guy a 5, but I would give him a 4.
Okay, you know what? I just realized why too. This card's insane with sickle. Okay?
Yes, it is.
Because a lot of tanks have 5 health. You shoot him with this and then you sickle it. That's the thing. So sickle's insane, but sickle enables this card to be more insane.
Yeah, sickle does take us to the next level. You have a good point there.
Yeah, and it's removal. Removal is the second most important thing in drafting, in my opinion. And whenever I use this card, it always feels good because it's usually a unit that I'm super not happy about, like a mortar or a bomber. So those units tend to have 4 health. So, you know, like removal, in my opinion, was almost meant for those units. And this card is that removal. Name another removal that even does what this card does, and it probably costs way more, and it's, I don't know, more situational or whatever, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you can get that Russian one that's 1 cost for 4 damage to air, but it doesn't have anywhere near the flexibility of this.
Yeah, exactly. I actually don't even think there's like a better card to kill air than this card, unless it's only air, but that's not a fair comparison because you've got tanks and all that other stuff to deal with, so...
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe you would say the Russian 3 damage to anything one is like better, but it doesn't, you know, like you said, 4 can be a critical threshold for some stuff. The 3 damage one is like good against bombers and things, but there's a lot of fighters with 4 HP or more.
I use the bomber. That's a 4/4 for 3, and I love it. I think it's one of the better units in the game. It's how I beat combo decks, and if people,
yeah, that Russian one,
yeah,
big,
a 4/4 for 3. It's expensive, but if you win the game because you're burning them out, or if you're killing units for 3, like think about it. Tactical strike, deal 4 damage to a unit. A bomber is for 3, doing 4 damage to a unit. I'm pretty cool with that, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, I love this card. I can't say enough about it. It sucks when you don't use it though, and then they move it forward, and now you can only do 2 damage.
Yeah, that's true.
Of course it has a negative, but hey man, sometimes that 2 damage is enough anyway, so whatever.
All right, let's move on. U48, 3 cost. The enemy cannot deploy units next turn.
I don't like it, but I've also lost to it.
Yeah, same. I think it's tempo. It gives you card disadvantage. It's bad when you're behind, but it can keep the opponent on the back foot long enough for you to keep pressing the advantage and win, which is, I guess, that's what it's made for, and it can do that job fairly well.
Maybe you play one because you get one, and then like you hope it wins you the game.
I'd give this probably a 3 in constructed and like a 2 in draft. I don't think it's a very good draft card.
I agree.
Okay, let's move to the 25 Panzer Grenadier. I'm not fond of this guy.
I don't like him either.
So this guy's a I guess we should describe what he actually does so before we start.
Yeah.
Start the dissing.
I think.
But this guy is a 4 cost, 4/5 with 1 operation, guard while it's in the front line, and infantry.
So like,
And you know, 4 cost 4/5, not really that exciting numerically.
no.
If it had guard all the time, there would still be other units that are better than it at being guards.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, it doesn't have guard all the time. And in fact, it doesn't have guard in the situation where you most need guard, which is when the enemy is hitting your base. So like,
It's a trap, right? Like it's guard when guard doesn't matter, and sure, there's value to being guarded on the front line, but that's usually a win more because if you need like if you have more than one unit in the front line, then like you're probably doing pretty well. Like, you know, like it's a little win more. It's not aggressively win more, but it's a little win more because most often when you move something up to the front line, you're like on the attack of some sort, and maybe you're hoping the guard unit draws attention away from another unit. But usually, if that scenario is even happening, you're already kind of like doing well, in my mind.
yeah, I'm not fond of this guy at all.
Yeah.
I would give him like a 2 and probably a 2 in both.
So for anyone like listening still, we didn't talk about any of this beforehand. So I love when we both agree because it's like I have these thoughts, you have thoughts independently, and then we both agree. Sometimes I don't know. I'm getting a little.
Yeah, I didn't know how this one was gonna go. I was like, oh, has he figured out some way that this card is actually sick and I'm gonna embarrass myself? Thankfully, it doesn't seem like it.
No, on that one, no.
But chat, if there's any like hardened veterans in chat, feel free to embarrass us if you know how this card is good.
Mm-hmm.
But from my perspective, and it sounds like from your perspective too, Sploosh, this is not a strong card.
Oh man, we got a bunch more cards. We got to get going.
All right,
Whew.
let's move on. Air Blitz, deal 4 damage to the enemy HQ.
I don't know, like average and constructed, but like a role player, like it's a good card in the deck that it's good, and it's a bad card in every other deck.
Yeah, like I would say this is probably like a 3 because it is quite good in the situation where it's good. But as you were saying, in a lot of decks, this is not really that good. I don't think it's good in draft.
No.
I think that like if you're going for direct face damage or you're going aggro or something, yeah, sure, bring it on. But there's those situations where it's like, oh, you know, it's like what you said earlier. Only the last point of life really matters.
Yeah, it either says I win the game or I don't do anything.
Yeah, there's a lot of situations where it's like, oh, you know, both people are in the like, you know, probably like 10 to 20 range. They've like traded a few hits, but what's really going to determine this is who's going to get the like overall board control. And in that sort of situation, this card doesn't do anything.
Yep. All right, that's all we gotta say.
All right. Enigma. Draw cards until you have as many cards in your hand as the enemy.
Yeah. This card's crazy good. I actually.
It's like a 4 or a 5 in constructed. This is actually like a total staple of the German strategy, and it makes a bunch of their other cards much better. But what do you think about it in draft? I'm actually not that fond of it in draft.
Usually you only get one anyway, so you can't even build around it. I actually did get 2 in a draft deck once, and I think I won like 7-1 or something. And I mean, you know, whatever, Magical Christmas Land, but I think you got to give it a 4, man. Like you can't hate on this card because you will play more like crazily knowing you have it in your hand.
You give it a 4 in draft?
I think I would. Yeah. The thing is, you can't make a deck around it because you might just not draw it.
When you're playing this card in constructed, you know you have it. You probably have 2 copies, and it's kind of central to your strategy, and like you're making other decisions based on it. When you're in draft, you probably have 1 copy. You don't have as much control over what else is in your deck. You don't really know what your opponent is doing. I don't know. I'm not fond of it.
Draft tends to be slow.
Combo with resistance.
People in general, but just I find draft games are not very aggro. Maybe they should be more aggro, but they're not. And if you,
I mean, it's hard to reliably draft aggro. Like, what if they just give you expensive stuff?
Right. So if you just play like 3 and 4 cost stuff like a maniac, you will pretty easily draw more with Enigma. Man, I don't know. Even if you draw 2 cards, like you drew 2 cards, and so when you play this card, that means it's not in your hand. So it doesn't count towards the card, you know, the card count. So it's gonna probably draw at least a card for itself, you know. It's expensive to cantrip yourself, but at least
it's really bad as a cantrip when you compare to like Envoy, for instance.
yeah, but you probably will get 2 cards, and then it's if you draw 2 cards, it's like a mediocre convoy. And I draw usually like 4 cards off this thing, so.
For this card to be getting if this card is drawing 2 cards or less, it's not efficient relative to other options, though it's still a good option for Germans who don't have those other options.
Yeah.
But if it's drawing more than 2 cards, it's getting you like a lot. It's getting you efficient value.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I'm cool with my 4. I'm not gonna.
The dream scenario is like you play the card that fills their hand with resistance cards, and then you play this.
The only time this card is bad is if your deck is so insanely good at cantripping and stuff. Like if you have a Panzer 3H or whatever, and you're playing the other one that cantrips. Like maybe you're just you're getting so much value that this card's just never good.
Well, I mean, it's also bad if it's like, oh, I'm playing against a very aggro deck and they're dumping their hand.
Sure.
And, like, I'm dumping my hand too, but like we're both doing it, so it's not one-sided. It's really good when it's like I'm playing against a like ramp late game value deck or whatever.
Yeah, but if they're playing aggro and I'm playing like slightly less aggro, then I probably win the card for card, and I don't need Enigma to win.
Yeah, it's possible.
Generally, a rule in card games is if someone's playing aggro, the guy who's like slightly slower should win if his deck's pretty good. And then usually,
assuming that it's like slower based on deck and not slower based on getting going.
Well, just it's designed to be a little more value than the crazy guy. But then usually that guy, which is defined as mid-range, usually loses to the control player because that guy is going like even slower.
He's, like just not quite fast enough to like just.
Yeah, that's generally and I don't know. You've had a lot of different card game experience than I have. Maybe you have a different opinion on that, but that's generally the rule.
Player weird. Like Netrunner didn't have aggro. In Conquest, almost every deck was mid-range because of the way that the game had to work.
Yeah.
But like that also skewed low.
Sure.
I don't know.
Yeah, and this game isn't like any other card game either of us have played, I guess. Like, it's pretty different.
It's kind of like a game that I used to play called Duelist, which was sort of a card game and sort of a tactics game.
Yeah, so anyway, what do you think about Enigma? I don't think you rated it.
I said, I think it's like a 4 or a 5 in Constructed and like maybe a 3 in Draft.
Sure.
I don't know, maybe a 4. It's not bad, but... Alright, Jagd Panther. 4 cost, 5/3 ambush, 2 operations, tank.
I actually take this guy.
This guy's interesting. The problem with him is that if he's in your backline, he's not good.
He trades up though.
No,
not
4.
But he probably kills something that costs 5.
Yeah, but like he also gets killed by a lot of things that cost 2 or 3.
Not with ambush.
But like the problem that I have with this unit is there's often the situation where it's like the opponent is the one who has the front line.
Okay, and they're killing you with a 3/3.
And then it's bad.
Yeah, because they're killing you with a 3/3, and you like have to die to the 3/3. You can't.
But if you're the one who has this, ambush units are interesting in this game. If you're the one with the front line, they can be a huge problem for the opponent. But if they have the front line, you have to have like good stats to trade effectively. And this guy's health is a little low for what he does.
So what I do generally when I play in Germans is I take a lot of removal. So what I'll do is I'll just keep killing things, and then I'll play this guy. They might play something, and then I hopefully can like kill it, and then move them up. Or like I played my guy first, so I'll move up, and then they have to then try to move through him. Do you know what I'm saying? So like he's really good with removal. And
wait, sorry, I actually didn't know what you were saying. I just said like instinctively. So I'll try it again.
No, did I drop for a sec or something?
You're saying he's good with removal because you can remove their front line and then you take the front line?
Yeah, you try to stay paired. Like you basically just keep killing things. Like I'll play like the 1 cost that kills a creature when they play it, the 3 damage thing. I'll just play like a lot of like just removal stuff so that they like the board is mostly clear, and then when I'll kill whatever they play like on turn 3 or whatever, then I'll play my 4, then they play a 4. And then I move up, and then now their 4 can't get through my 4.
If he is the one defending and he's using ambush, he hits above his weight. but if he's the one who has to attack, he hits below his weight. So it's sort of an interesting situation.
Basically, he's really good if you have a lot of removal, or maybe your deck is so aggressive that you already have the backline, so there's no contesting going on. Also good with the 1/3, because if you play the 1/3 and then the turn ahead you move it up, even if it dies, it paid for itself because now this guy gets to take his place.
Interesting point.
So
I'd probably give this guy, I don't know, I'm not fond of him, quite frankly.
he needs a setup, and he's built in with a concept.
I'd probably put this guy at about the like 2 range, quite frankly. Maybe 3 in draft.
Yeah, and I see him as kind of a removal spell because yes, he just sits in the backline maybe, but like I'll wait until something big comes along and then I'll just shoot him into it or whatever.
Possible.
Like he can kill a 4/5, you know.
All right, let's go to the next one. JU87B Stuka. The enemy must discard a card each time Stuka deals damage to their HQ. 3/2 bomber, 4 cost, 2 operations.
Can we cheat a little? Both these bombers are basically the same card.
Okay, so I think this card's bad.
That's what I'm getting at. I think both of them are bad. The JU87.
Much better than this.
Yeah, Av Dive Bomb is not like he's better, and I hate to cheat it, but like my point is like in constructed these both are horrible.
Yeah, so I think this is like a 2 or maybe even a 1. It's really bad.
They often die because their 2 health is their biggest problem.
Yeah, and this ability is really not strong. I mean, it's like I saw this at first and I was like, oh, it's automatic card advantage getting as a bomber. The problem is bombers very often want to use their ability to hit without retaliation to go after your enemy's units, not their HQ. So he rewards you for doing something that you often don't want to do.
I've noticed that. Anything that says hit the HQ tends to be a bad card with bombers because their whole purpose is to like kill things so everybody else can get the HQ.
So this other one, the JU87B2, gives the dive bombing into your hand. I think it's better, though not great. I would say this is like a 3 in draft, 2 in constructed or something, and the other one is like maybe even a 1.
I think it's widely understood that their cost is too high. I'm not saying that they deserve to be 3s, though, because they might be broken as 3s. Or, I don't know about broken.
Insane as a 3.
Exactly, but they can't compete.
Would not be all that crazy as a 3.
They can't really compete, though.
Cost 3/2 that has a smoke screen and gets buffed if you have more than 1.
That's the one.
That way better than the discard card.
Exactly. Smoke screen protects them on the turn it matters, and it's doing it a turn faster than these guys.
Right, let's go to the next one. Martyr 3H. 4 cost 3/3 plus 1 attack each time another unit is destroyed. That's permanent, and it has 1 operation cost. Even though the art kind of makes it look like an artillery, it is a tank.
Real quick though, what would you give those bombers in constructed and draft? Just like a 2 or 3?
I would give the dive bombing one like a 2 or a 3, and the other one a 1 or a 2.
In constructed and draft, just keep them together.
I'd probably put the dive bombing one as a 3 in draft and a 2 in constructed, and I would put the other one as like a 1 and a 2. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
And on the subject of the Martyr 3H, this one I think is pretty solid. It's not incredible, but it's not. I don't know. This like is a solid like 3 in my opinion.
It's a solid 3. It's terrible and constructed though. When you consider that a T80 can kill this thing for half its cost and no activation cost or whatever, yes, it can grow.
It's like a 2/3 then.
Yeah, it can grow to be big, but then something will just like trade up on it. You know, like a random 3 or 2 drop will probably kill it. So like, what did you?
Yeah, it's not really getting you the maximum efficiency for cost. Let's go to the next one here. Emmy BF 110, 4 cost 3/3 at the end of your turn. Give Emmy BF 110 +1/+1 if you control the front line. And it is a fighter. I don't like this guy that much. I thought he was really sick at first, but I don't know.
I agreed as well. I give him like a 3, and when I first started playing this game, I thought he was like a 4, but I was wrong. I was just wrong. Like he's not. He's.
Yeah, you know, maybe he rises to a 4 in draft, but even then, I would give him a 3 and probably a 2 or a 3 in constructed.
He's the kind of card where you like start getting powerful, and then they like retreat him, and you just feel miserable. Like,
yeah.
You know.
And in draft, when people have like generally less efficient and like optimal cards, you know, 4 for a 3/3 fighter, worst case, is not that bad, but like I don't know.
I give him a 3 because I like will pick him, but like if there's something else, I'll take that if it's better.
I would rather have the ones that are 4/4 fighters all the time, even if you don't have the front line, that have this guy's like potential ability to ramp to higher than that across several turns.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, let's go to the next one.
Yep.
We're gonna have the Panzer III-E, 4 cost, 2 operations, 4/4 blitz smokescreen. Other friendly tanks with blitz have +1 attack. What do you think about this guy?
Nah, I'll take him, I guess.
I think he's pretty solid.
I honestly just for some reason never get him, and when I can, I'm like, sure, whatever. But I never feel like I have blitz stuff to ever do anything with him. It just feels like he's a tank that costs 4.
Yeah, he's not blowing stuff up, but I don't know, the smoke screen is nice. Like, I think he's clearly better than the one that's a 4 or 5 blitz for the same price.
Yeah. But
I don't know. I'd get this guy like, you know, maybe a 3 or a 4.
I think like he's a strong 3.
Maybe a 3.5.
Yeah, I hate to say 3.5, but like I can't get him a 4 with any kind of excitement.
Maybe 4 constructed, 3 draft. Maybe you generally don't have that many tanks in draft. I could see a cool deck with this guy for constructed.
Maybe eventually, but like I don't even think you can support him as a unit.
All right, let's go to the real all-star, the Panzer III-H. 4 cost, 2/5, only 1 operation. Deployment: choose and draw a card from the top 3 of your deck and put the rest on the bottom.
Can I give him a 5?
Oh yeah, this guy's a pro, dude.
I actually would give him a 5 in both formats too.
He's very strong. So first off, the body is not great, but the fact that it only has 1 operations cost makes it a lot more palatable than some other options. And the thing that's really good is that you get a like pretty decent body, low operation cost, and you get a filtered draw. That is so good.
Oh, dude, this card wins you games. You will play this card, find the removal spell that you needed, and then win the game.
I think earlier you were saying this guy's basically a better version of that one.
Yes.
What's it called?
The other Panzer, I forget the name.
Yeah, the one that's
the 3-drop. Yeah.
Card, and I have to agree, this guy's great.
I play this guy in every deck I can fit him. I play him in a American deck, Russia deck, and I don't want a tangent, but like he's first of all he's card advantage because even if he dies, you drew a card, so it does not matter. And his health is so high that he will often clean up the rabble in the early game, like against aggro decks and stuff. The fact he has the 1 cost means he will often be like a random 2 damage ping to their base. He usually will survive like 1 hit from most units in the game, and then when he's wounded, he's actually not a bad target for like the Russian like kill a unit, make it grow or something. So he might kill something, then you play that card, and then you get a 5-drop or a 6-drop.
He's really got a lot going for him.
He does it all, and card selection is insane. Like it's incredible how you'll see 3 cards, and then you'll like go, wow, I'm so glad I'm not going to draw those next turn, and you take like 1 and they go to the bottom of your deck. You know, I mean, it's unbelievable. There's nothing you can't say enough about this guy.
Yeah. All right, Panzer III-J, 4 cost, 2 operations, 4/5 blitz. I would say this is another 3 type.
Can we give this a strong 3?
Yeah.
He's like the meat and potatoes.
Yeah, not a lot to say about this guy. He's a meat and potatoes card. He's got like his stats are not amazing, but they're okay. He has blitz, but his operations cost is expensive, so it's not as crazy as it seems. Just medium.
He's like soft removal. He does what you expect, and I don't aggressively pick him, but like most likely I'm picking him over whatever other thing is on the list because he's better.
Sky Barons, 4 cost, destroy an air unit, draw a card.
I'll take 1. Like
this card, I think is actually really this is a high priority draft.
Really?
I would say it's like a 4 or maybe even a 5 in draft.
Holy cow!
What?
I'm impressed. I didn't
so it
think.
kills something and it draws a card. It's excellent.
But it's dead sometimes.
But it's dead sometimes. It has to be an air unit. I would not want to have all 3 of these, but 1 or 2 are amazing.
I will always take 1.
This would be like an absolutely incredible, like 10 out of 10 sideboard card if sideboards existed in this game.
And I have played one of these in my Russian deck. Because Russia struggles against the higher mid-range, like American decks that play like bombers and all these crazy planes. And so they're card advantaging me by playing the bomber, and then I card advantage them back by playing this.
Nice.
And I paid 4, they paid 9 or 7.
Right.
So it's a very strong card, even in constructed. But I mean, it's like a sideboard card, so I really don't think you can play more than 1 unless you're a maniac. And I think in 1 in draft is like super acceptable.
Yeah,
That's
I'd say this is like maybe a 3 or 4 in constructed, but like a 4 or 5 in draft.
yeah, it's still situational for constructed. You need a deck that wants it.
10.5 centimeter LEFH. Not really fond of this guy, honestly.
I think this is played in some burn deck, but
It is. He's not awful. I would say so. Like 5 cost 1 operations for a 2/3 artillery is trash. It's horrible.
mm-hmm.
But when you deploy it, it does 2 damage to the enemy HQ. But 2 is not that much damage.
It's not. But
However, this is played, I believe, in some of the like very aggressive like burn direct damage to HQ.
Japanese burn, I think.
I don't know. I would still give this guy like maybe a like 2 in constructed, and like maybe a 3 in draft, but maybe not even that. Maybe a 2 in draft, quite frankly.
I agree.
Because only the last HP matters. If you're not using this to like really immediately accelerate the end of the game, it's not a good ability and it's bad stats for cost.
It forces them to remove it in the constructed deck because obviously they don't want to just take another 2 the next turn.
Right.
And you know you're playing against a burn deck, so you can't just allow the burn deck to like hit you more. So in a weird way, it like gives the burn deck 3 more health.
Yeah, that's interesting. You can kind of stall them because they want to try to deal with it.
Yes, and who knows? Maybe you're overkilling it, so maybe it takes 5 damage. So
usually you do want to kill. Usually you do want to kill an artillery, also just on principle because it can have a nasty effect on your units if left unchecked, thanks to no retaliation.
Of course, however, if the guy's burning you out and you're at like 6, and he, you like have no choice but like to get this guy, and so that's the point, right? So anyway, I'd say like a 3 in like the 1 deck that plays it, and it's probably like not the best card in the deck, but like if
it might be like a 1 for anything that isn't a burn deck.
I agree. Yeah.
All right, let's move to the next one. Admiral Hipper. 5 cost operations. Send a unit to owner's hand. Enemy does not gain a credit slot or draw a card next turn.
I kind of want to give it a 4, but like it's not like I'm not super happy about a 4, but like
I give this a 4. So this
yeah.
is like, so this is tempo. This is like the previous one, the one where it returns a card and then they discard at random.
Mm-hmm.
This is tempo. This is like tempo / and temporary removal, but it's also not card disadvantage. And it also slows down their credit gain, but often that doesn't matter. It kind of depends on what deck you're playing against.
Yeah.
Mid-range absolutely hates to see this card. It's so bad for them.
It's really frustrating. Unless the thing does something when it comes into play, but even then
it's nasty.
It's a good card. We can move on.
Alright, let's move to the next one. Heinkel HE 219, 5 cost, 2 operation fighter, 4/5. When your HQ is damaged by a non-Heinkel HE 219 source, deal 1 damage to the enemy HQ.
I don't know what to think on this one. Like, I do take it.
Draft, I would say this is like a 3 because you just like play like its ability doesn't do anything, and you play it for stats, and it's medium.
Exactly. This card is secretly just a stats card with like some text that barely matters. And
there's some combos where this is really good. Like you play this and you play like the Soviet stuff that damages you. Like you play Bloody Sickle and it damages them as well, and like a bunch of dumb stuff like that.
Right.
But I don't know that it's like enough to make this card really good. Maybe there's some combo where it's incredible, but I'd be tempted to give it like a 2 or a 3 in constructed.
I give it. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. 2 or 3. I would. Well, wait. In constructed, no, I've never even seen anyone play this in constructed. In draft, I was thinking even like
it's slightly high on the potential that there's some combo that I don't know about.
I would even give this like a 2 or 3 in draft because like I will take it over a lot of other stuff, but I'll never like, oh man, I'm so glad I got this. I don't know. It's good for finishing opponents off when they're like at like 10, and you're like, all right, now I'm just gonna like attack your base the rest of the game.
Yeah. All right, let's move to the next one.
The Hummel.
Hummel, 5 cost, 2 operations, 2/4 deployment. If you control a tank, target enemy unit must retreat.
I have to say 4, right?
You know, I don't know. I like this really a lot at first, but I've been kind of souring on it a little. I'd put it down in the 3 range now.
So when I'm drafting, I see this card, I will often look at my deck and go,
Yeah,
do
see
I
if you
have
the
enough tanks? If I
I've had
don't,
that happen before where I just don't have the tanks to really support it.
exactly. So you will have to not take this card if you don't have enough tanks. And you don't want to like draft tanks on purpose that are bad just to enable this either. Like it has to be tanks that I actually am happy to have. Like the cantrip tanks are perfect. You know, playing the cantrip tanks and then this guy, that feels good.
Yeah.
That's all. I don't know. In constructed, it's okay. Like I think constructed has like these tier 2, tier 3. Like it's really good in like a frontlines deck for tempo. It's a tempo card. It's
Also another good like early collection, like pretty cheap card.
yeah. But I gotta tell you, man, I will try to take this.
Yeah.
So
You do not usually want 3 of these because it's not only expensive but it's conditional.
true. Probably don't
I
take
don't know.
3.
Maybe if you have like an only tanks deck, it's sick. I haven't tried that deck, but I think there's like some support for it.
Sure.
All right, let's move to the next one. Junkers JU-88A, 5-cost bomber, 4/5, 2 operations, vanilla.
I don't think I've ever taken this card unless like I had to and then I never drew it and didn't care.
I think it's sort of okay in draft at least. I'd say like maybe 2 constructed, 3 draft.
Sure.
I don't know. 5 health is nice for a bomber. Sometimes you can play this and like the opponent can't kill it, which is pretty sweet.
Yeah, maybe I'm underselling it. I don't ever remember it winning me a game, and like I'll usually just pick.
Maybe I've talked myself into it and I straight 3. I don't know.
Yeah,
All right, next up, Panther A. This card's amazing.
Can we say 5?
5, 2 operations. Sorry for the spoiler of it, guys. Heavy armor 1, deployment. The enemy does not draw a card next turn. This is probably a 4 or 5.
I'm gonna go 5 on this.
Yeah, I think this is an amazing card. So
this is like the first bomb that we've come across. Like the definition of a bomb, I feel like is this card. Like it's powerful enough to like win you the game just by like it hits you 4 times, you die.
Yeah.
Like
so it has good stats. Heavy armor 1 makes it trade quite favorably with most things under it and some things above it even. And then also it gives you automatic card advantage. I guess if they kill it for free, then it's even. But yeah, this card's great in my opinion.
It often will get 2 cards just as a body. And then it also just denied them a card. Like
yeah, this card's excellent. The only real risk for this is games where you're playing against like some kind of really crazy aggro and it comes out too late.
Yeah, this is the kind of card where you're getting aggroed out and you have it in your hand and you just are sad.
Yeah. But it's great in like a mid-range type game.
Yeah.
All right, Panther G, 5 cost, 7/5, heavy armor 1. This is still a pretty good card in my opinion.
I don't even own any of these, but man, I don't know. Like I will take it every time, but it's definitely not the other card.
Yeah, so this guy is very much overshadowed by his brother over there, but I don't think he's horrible.
Yeah, so by the way, Panther A, I play in like a lot of constructed decks. Panther G, I don't even own, and I honestly didn't even notice I didn't own him because I care so little.
I don't know. 7 attack is really nice. That's the main thing that we're thinking about.
Like in draft, this guy you just take it. Yeah. Like I don't even.
This is like easily a 4 in draft. Maybe
yeah,
5.
I don't think he's a 5.
But in constructed, he does.
He's just
Panther A is a lot better.
You take a tiger or you take a panther. You don't take this guy. Like the A.
All right. Panzer 4G, 5 cost, 5/6, 2 operations. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I just take this guy. You have to be careful if your deck's too expensive. But like if you like have like this awesome like kind of early deck, but like you haven't got any good late game cards, like you probably just take this guy. His 6 health is super relevant.
I think this is like a 2 in constructed, but a 3 in draft.
Yeah, like I'm not saying he's gonna like win you games, but yes, I think 3 because he's like he's a body. He's like filling the body role.
Yeah, you don't want to take too many of these.
No.
All right. Next up, Wolfpack, 5 cost. Enemy discards a random card and doesn't draw a card next turn.
4 in constructed.
Yeah.
Maybe 4 in draft.
I just give him a 4 card advantage.
Yep, card advantage is good. It's like no catch other than you're getting aggroed out and you lose. But like that's on you to like make sure that doesn't happen.
Even if they have no cards in hand, this might still be worth it to
Mhm.
play if you have the advantage, just to
Yep.
make sure that you keep it for another turn.
You have like something doing 5 damage, like a panther, and then you
Yep.
play this card, and it's like they just like often people concede because it's like, oh well, I'm not drawing a card, and then that means I have to wait 2 turns to draw a card, and
Yeah.
people are just like, oh, I see the writing on the wall. I'm about to take 15 damage before I draw a card, you know? So.
Strong one. All right. 88 millimeter flak, 6 cost, 2 operation artillery, 3/4 ambush, double damage against air.
I don't get this card very often, and I don't pick it very often. How about you?
This guy, I don't think this guy is very good. He's quite expensive. He is good against air. The ambush is nice against air also. Bombers can still just bomb you without you getting a chance to do anything about it, though, which is not good.
Mm-hmm.
And 3 attack on a 6 cost is also not all that good, even though he is an artillery, if you're trying to deal with some other stuff. Also, the description incorrectly describes this as a 37 millimeter anti-aircraft gun.
I love that you notice this stuff. Yeah, it does. I don't ever take this guy unless like I have no choice, because I feel like when you're paying 6, like he needs to be able to beat other 6s, but he's like only hitting for 3. It's kind of like
much rather have the British one where it's like 6 for a 3/3 artillery without ambush, but it pins something when you play it.
Right, exactly. You want like more relevant text. He's basically only good against fighter planes, but like, so what?
Like I don't know. I'd say this guy's like probably a 2 constructed, like a 2 or 3 draft. I don't know.
Right, because tanks just kill him, you know?
Yeah.
Or bombers.
It loses to tanks that cost like 4.
Right.
And it costs 6, so that's pretty bad. It might lose to some tanks that cost 3. Yeah, it actually. Well, I don't know. It's different, but yeah. All right, so then moving on to the Dornier DO-217. 6 cost, 5/4 bomber, 2 operations. When this destroys a unit, the enemy must discard a card at random.
I'll take this guy.
This guy's decent. He's not an absolute decent. It's funny how much better destroy a unit, discard a card is than damage HQ.
Yep.
I'd say this guy is probably like a 4 in draft, like a 3 in constructed.
Sure. I don't have a lot to say because I honestly just never get him very often. He's kind of like rare, you know.
Yeah, he is high rarity.
Also, like, let's say there's this guy or like the tank that cantrips, like the 4 power one, the 4 cost. I take the 4 cost guy because I want card consistency and I want like that early drop that's going to keep me from dying to aggro, and I'll get something big later. You know? So like this, I probably don't get this guy because I'm picking like that guy over this guy. Is that fair?
Which is that guy?
Okay, so look, I'm talking about the Panther, the Panzer 3H.
Sure.
Right, or I get a Panther A. So like Panther A or Panzer 3, I'll take over this guy. So
this guy might only be like a 3 actually in draft.
Do you see my point? So like,
yeah, that rarity aspect's important.
Exactly. So this guy, I'm like looking at him, going, dude, I don't even remember this guy being in the game. Like I just got one in a pack like this today. So it's like, anyway. So that's all.
All right, Fogwolf 198, 6 cost, 6/5 fighter, vanilla, 2 whatever operations.
This is another guy I get because I have to.
Yeah, I don't think this guy is that good.
Yeah.
I mean, it is like the Spitfire, whichever version, but objectively worse, which is a British one that is the exact same except 6/6 instead of 6/5.
Maybe this is because we're kind of repeating ourselves a lot. It's like maybe we should just mention that like if you're paying 6 for something, it probably should be winning you the game.
And this card can do that sometimes when this is like, oh, I played this and like it can fly over the engagement and hit their base. You know, that's not bad.
Yeah.
But it's not like something that you're really enthralled to see.
Yeah, like I just would pick like other stuff though.
Probably 2 constructed, 3 draft maybe.
Yeah, like I'd pick the 5/6 tank for 5 over this guy as my finisher.
Probably.
That's my point. Anyway.
All right, Comet, 6 cost, 0 operation, 4/2 blitz. At the end of your turn, return comment to your hand.
I think it's a 5.
This is a
It's a
I
5.
give this a 5 in draft and a 4 in constructed.
It's a 5 in constructed too. I'll tell you,
Might-
because first of all, it auto wins against some of the most derpy decks in the game right now.
It's true. If someone has one of those like idiotic pinning decks, and you play this, it's just like, oh, I guess you lost, dude, because like this keeps going back to my hand, and you can't use any of your removal on it. So like, good game.
Yeah, and even like the British Air deck, like they play a ton of bombers, so it never gets hurt.
This guy is great for like, oh, I'm gonna kill this bomber next turn. Oh, I'm gonna kill this bomber.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you play a Katushka or whatever, and it's like the stupid thing's gonna come out and kill it. Like, I don't know.
The downside of this is that it's fixed cost in a game against aggro or whatever. It's not going to do very much. But this gives you like kind of late game inevitability because you can essentially just keep using it as a deal 4 damage to enemy HQ. It gives you the ability to pick off bombers, like we said. It is bad against guard, so that's an important thing to note about it.
It's horrible against guard, and it's like obviously if your backline is like filled up, it's hard to like put it out. Like I've like had situations where like my backline's too crowded with like random stuff, and it's just like, damn it, like I need to put this guy out and I can't, you know.
Also, little fun fact: this aircraft in real life was like wildly better in performance than any other aircraft of the time, to the point where it actually became a downside because this was so much faster than enemy planes that it would go past them too quickly, and you wouldn't have time to aim at them.
Yeah, the bombers were going too slow. I'd love to talk to you about that sometime. But it's like a removal spell as well. Like you could just be like, I'm killing that. Boom, dead.
You can just use it to trade. I don't know. It's pretty strong.
Yeah, you 4 or 5. I don't care. It's up there.
All right, Panzer IV F2, 6 cost, 5/5, 2 operations, deployment. Target unit must retreat.
So I don't want to say I like windmill slam this guy, but I kind of take him. Like, so like we're looking at those other 6 costs, and then this guy comes up. I take this guy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It might be a 5, honestly.
Yeah, we're talking about those earlier 6 drops, and I just look at this guy, and I'm like, no, I take this guy every time.
This guy's like, oh no, I lost 1 stat compared to some of those other units, and in exchange, I have an incredible ability.
Yeah, and like someone plays something with tons of buffs, they got some annoying mortar, and it's not just tempo. But it's almost like a form of blitz because like now that unit's gone, and now next turn you're ready for it. You know?
Yeah.
It's very, very strong.
Extremely strong. Probably a 5.
Yeah.
Alright, Annihilation. Destroy an enemy unit that costs 5 or less. Enemy discards a card at random.
I mean, it's a 4 for sure.
I think this is a 3 in constructed, but a 4 in draft.
You play like 1 or 2 in constructed. Dude, I play an American deck that plays this card.
I used to be really into this. I had 2 of them, but I actually cut it back down to 1. Because I was like, you know what? 7 cost.
It's a card that you cut.
7 cost and it's an aggro meta. That's not a great place to be at.
You say it's an aggro meta, but it's like aggro and then like all these weird control-y combo-y decks. And like, I don't know.
What does this do against a combo deck?
Well, the combo not so much, but like even the combo decks, like this stupid pin deck plays that guy that makes you discard. But like you kill him with this, and then you might make him discard like a key combo card. I mean, it's not great, don't get me wrong, but like it's good, and even when it's supposed to be bad. And then really, it's just there's a lot of mid-range out there. It's not all aggro, you know? And it also kills airplanes. And a lot of the derpy airplanes are under 5. But the people, like, you know, make it like a 6-something bomber, and this thing will kill it and ruin, like, a bunch of their cards and then take a card from them. So, and it's not just me. Like, Darkness or whatever, who's, like, one of the #1 players, like, he plays 2 of these in America, Germany. And I built his deck because I have the cards. So, and I...
Interesting. So okay. So maybe I'm underrating it.
Yeah. You gotta be in the world of mid-range and all that. But...
Yeah, in the world of mid-range, this is great.
Yeah.
And in draft, it does get that extra punch because almost everyone is like some kind of mid-range value deck in draft.
Exactly. Yes.
Alright, let's go to the next one. We're running out of cards here. We're almost done.
Good.
Chunkers JU 188E, 7 costs, 3 ops, 5/6 bomber fury.
I think it comes back to what I said earlier. I take the other cards of this rarity every
I don't
time.
know. This guy is an end the game threat.
I don't think I've ever had him in the deck. I probably passed on him for like the other guys. Just straight up.
Okay.
He's like not bad though. Like I probably could take him if the other guys weren't like 4s and 5s. Like
Oh yeah, I'd give it. I think 3 in both. That's a good idea.
sure, 3 in both. And it's we could, I actually get this guy sometimes in my Russian deck because I play like the German 5, the Panther, and then I use the card at +2, and it
Right.
gives me this guy like every single time because there's no other 7.
Is there? I thought there was one other 7. No, you're right.
So like sometimes I'll get this guy knowing I'll get this guy.
All right, Kriegsmarine.
Dude, I honestly never played it and never seen anyone play it.
Yeah, 7 cost. Deals damage to enemy HQ equal to cards in enemy hand, then enemy discards a card. I think this is like a 2. This is one of the worst elites in the game, in my opinion.
Yep. I have nothing else to say.
So the problem with this card is, so in theory, it's like, oh, this can do 9 damage, and it makes them discard. That's amazing. But it's like, oh, so if they have a lot of cards in hand, some of their... So I guess the dream is like, they play the Japanese card that draws cards equal to the power of the unit it just killed. And so it's like, oh, I just like killed something and drew a ton of cards, but then you hit back with this, which makes them discard something and does a lot of damage. But in practice, what this often is like either the discard is okay, but because they don't have very many cards, or the damage is good because they have a lot of cards, but both effects are usually bad.
They like don't.
Or
yeah.
It's not the case that both effects are good at the same time.
My suggestion: add 2 cards discarded, and now I'm thinking about it. But even then,
oh, that'd be crazy though.
Even then, I don't.
I had this in gold, but I like
You did, yeah.
uncrafted it to get something that was better than it.
Yeah, I don't know, man. If it was 2 cards, I'd even not sure if I'd play it. So whatever.
All right, continuing the theme of bad elites, ME262A Schwal.
Oh man.
ME262 was a really good plan in real life, but it is not a really good plan in this game.
So I just got this guy from a pack in like a draft, and I was so excited. Like the art is so cool. Everything about this card feels cool. I love jets and like I'm a big like plane guy, whatever. And I have him in one of my decks just because I never played him in the game. But I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, is this guy even good ever?
No.
So like,
he's good if they have like some big air fleet. And
no, like okay, the only time he's good is if you're playing against Brit bombers and they just have like buffs and there's like a million of them, and the dream is you just like get it out of here, right? But
the problem is it costs 8.
Okay, yeah, but you're playing 1. He's a finisher. But so the thing is, like, if you're playing against America, which is the most likely version of air, their stuff,
it's
like, okay, so it gets better. But okay, so they're gonna
give you your B-17.
Yeah, they're just gonna play him again and kill something else. It even has 5 power, so it dies to the Corsair. But but it gets
good against the I think it's the Avenger that does that. But yeah.
Whatever. So hold on. But there's also
it's good against the British and Russian. Like I'm gonna buff my bombers decks, but those decks will probably kill you before you play it.
No, you can keep the game. Like, dude, you can keep those decks slow. But here's the thing. So the British players have a bomber or airplane that makes things retreat. So you play this guy, his guy goes back into his hand. He plays that guy, this guy goes back in your hand. And it's not even like you can target. So, like, he can literally infinitely retreat you.
And then you can retreat. I don't know.
But you pay 8.
This card is extremely bad. I would not like this card should probably cost like if this card costs 7, I would still think it was bad. If this card costs 6, like I guess it would be good just because it has huge numbers.
Yeah, I actually want to play it in constructed and like prove to myself
Honestly,
it's bad.
If this card costs 6, I would not consider it to be like totally insane. Like I think it would be very good, but I don't think it would be like completely busted.
It almost can 2-shot kill you your whole base though. I mean that's
a lot. 8 is a really big number, but like 5 is not a very big number for a unit that costs 8.
If it had blitz, it would be absurd, but it doesn't.
Yeah, it would be crazy.
I guess we'll move on, but man, like for anyone listening that like has this card or doesn't or whatever, or dreams of having it, I hope it's good, or I can make it good, or they'll buff it or something, because I think it looks cool and it's so like cool, but whatever.
I would honestly say this card is like a 1 and like I think it's a 1 in both. It's like,
you're probably right, and people like you are the kind of people I need in my life to tell me I'm stupid, because like I am the kind of person.
I like the ME262 also. I wish it were good, but like
I am the kind of person sometimes where I fall in love with bad things, and I need to be told it's bad. So thank you.
All right, well, I think that one's bad.
All right.
All right, Tiger 1E. This card was actually very recently made an elite in the most recent balance patch. It was originally a rare.
Okay, I own 2 of these. Where did my other one go?
It automatically got dusted or whatever.
Okay, whatever.
Yeah, so this is a 7/7 heavy armor 2, can't be targeted by enemy order. Cost 3 operations. I think this is actually very good.
This thing's windmill slam. Like, this is the bomb that you always take. Do you disagree? Like,
no, this is like the end game. Like, I'm gonna throw this down here and like, you know, there's some stuff that can answer it. The US discard a random unit is so annoying against this. But the fact that it can't be targeted means that most removal doesn't work on it at all. Its stats mean that it will beat almost anything that isn't like a late game super unit. The heavy armor means that while it destroys lesser units, it doesn't even take that much damage from doing so. Its only real downside is the very high cost and operations cost. But by the time that you can play it, you probably have enough for the operations anyway. This is a very strong card in my opinion.
the fact that they made it elite or whatever they call it is probably a sign that they didn't want you to play 2 of these. I've played a game as Russia where I play that unit, the 5-drop that kills a wounded thing, and that counters him, obviously. But then they played a second one, and I lost because I had nothing else that could kill this thing. Like, this thing is the card where your opponent put... So, I've played this card in draft, too, not just constructed, and... Yeah. It's the kind of card where when you see that thing fall down, you either play a retreat card or you go face to the opponent, and either you burn them out or you lose. Like,
I'd say this is like probably a 4 in constructed and a 5 in draft. In
yes.
Draft, this is like one of the best bombs there is.
Yeah, you put this thing on the front line, and it's like you lose. I've had games where I was winning, but like the opponent's at like 4. They put this thing on the front line. And I instantly, like, I'm like, I lost. Like, there's, like, maybe I'll top deck a Katushka or something and, like, whatever. But, like, for the most part, this thing's sitting on the front line. I cannot win the game anymore. It's,
yeah,
you know?
Good stats, good ability, and excellent ability. Just very difficult to deal with.
And I've also,
Tiger 1H, this one is, in fact, a rare and not an elite. It's not called rare. It's called...
Special.
All right, this one instead of 7, wait, that one was also 8, right? That one's 8. Yeah, they're both.
Yeah, these 2 are interesting.
8 instead, but instead of can't be targeted, this one just can't be pinned. What do you think about this?
I actually like I wanted to talk to you about these 2. I think the Tiger I is better in constructed, but I think the Tiger H is better in draft. Like, because draft, it's like removal still struggles with this guy. Like, it's not easy. And pinned is probably more common. Like, and he's got more health, so it's harder to just, like, throw all your crap at him.
I like the other one more, but I think this one is still very good in draft, at least. And probably, dude, I wanna have this guy against the stupid decks that spam pins and then try to do that thing that does 20 damage to your base.
I tried it because I lost to that deck, and I was like, oh, I'm going to play this guy. But then it's like... I forget.
You play against a normal deck, and it's like, eh.
Well, because the other guy gets pinned, and it's like, that's annoying. But then you play this guy, and he, like, dies to removal. And it's like, well, I can never seem to win. It's always, like, one or the other, you know? So...
It is one of those things also where, like, you know, if you could sideboard whatever, like, I'm going to swap this in if someone has a pinning deck.
Mm-hmm.
That would be one thing, because it would give you, like, a really, really good, like, final blow.
Yeah.
But this isn't a sideboard game.
So, this guy actually dies to the pin decks anyway because they just play like tons of AoE damage, and his armor does nothing against that. Sure, it's not easy.
Yeah, that's a little fun fact that can easily mess someone up if they're a newcomer. Armor in this game only works on unit-to-unit damage. The heavy armor ability, it does not work against spells.
As a Russian player, I do not fear the Tiger H, even remotely as much as the other guy, because I have
Russians can just hit it with like destroy damage demon stuff.
You critical strike or whatever it's called.
In fact, you can do the freaking sickle.
Yeah, you do sickle, and I've done that to them. Or you do sickle and that other guy, or you do like sickle and the hammer, and it just dies.
Yeah, there's a lot of options.
So I give this guy like still like probably a 5 in draft, because like you just play it and like they go face and then you stop them and then you win.
I think this one's a 4 in draft and the other one's a 5, but yeah.
I'm sure.
definitely happy to see this in draft, because like if you have the like decisive endgame unit, it can be really good.
And
this is a 5 in draft actually.
Can we also just repeat what I was saying earlier about those other specials? I don't play them because I take this guy.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? So like it's all relative. You know.
All right, let's go to the next one here. Panzer Zug 61 BP 42. This card is stupid, dude.
Dude, this is another one of those cards where I got it really early when I bought the game, or played, not bought, but, you know, played the game. And I was, like, super excited because I have the train for Russia, and he's a train. And so I'm like, oh, trains are cool. This train sucks.
So 9 cost, 5/9 heavy armor 1, 5 operation cost, which I think is the highest in the game. While in the front
no,
line,
tied.
the end of your turn.
It's tied with the other train, which is also 5. But that one caught... Yeah, it's 5 to play and then 5 to move.
So here's the problem with this card. Well, there's a lot of problems.
There's a lot of problems.
So the first problem is that the stats are not good for something that costs 9. The second problem is that you have to have it in the front line, and it can't move the turn that you play it.
Yep.
But I guess it couldn't anyway because the operation cost is so high.
Right.
The third problem is, yes, if this gets to the front line and just sits there, you probably win. But like,
Alright.
Other things that do that role better.
Here's how you make this card playable. You add guard.
Yeah, if it had guard, it would be much better.
The Russian one has guard.
Some anti-synergy though.
No, the Russian one has guard, and it's one of the best cards in the deck. I mean, it's like, it still would be like issues. Like, I actually think this thing could cost like 8 or 7, and like would be fine.
The thing, though, yeah, I mean, like, so the thing is, if you have a tiger sitting in the front line, you're also probably going to win the game.
Right.
And so if you have this guy sitting in the front line, you're probably going to win the game, but it's by a different method. The cards draw at the end of the turn.
Yeah, it's like slower.
Will just kill you. Your stats aren't actually that good. I think this guy is quite bad. I mean, he does still fill the role of being a bomb, where if he sits in the front line uncontested, you will win the game. He does do it. It's not like he doesn't do it. But he does it at a cost of 9, and he does it with like a lot more vulnerability than those tigers have.
I've had people play this card, and I just beat them because it's like stuck in the back line. It's not...
I'd say this is like a I don't know, this is like a 3 in draft and a 2 in constructed.
Sure. Yeah, I'll go with it.
Maybe it's a 2 in draft. 9 is a really large amount. Alright, let's move on. Bismarck, 10 cost, deals 7 damage to the enemy HQ.
Yeah, we've been over this. It either wins you the game or it doesn't. I will never take it if I have a choice.
The thing is, also, if you're doing like a burn deck, you probably want to win before turn 10.
You know what that is, right? You've got him at like 4 at like turn 6. And then literally for the next 4 turns, you're like, please don't kill me, please don't kill me, please don't kill me.
Yeah, I think I got this in draft once, and I took it because it was interesting, and I killed someone with it in like 1 game. And like, I don't know, it's not... I have kind of a soft spot for stuff like this.
Oh, really? We found your weakness.
Well, no, because I don't actually play it. I don't it.
You're smart enough to have the soft spot but not play it?
I played it like once in draft. I wouldn't like be like, oh, I gotta craft this. You know, I gotta get into this Bismarck card.
I don't know, man. We'll just forget about this card. What do you want to rate it? Like, I wouldn't take it. Like,
maybe it's like a 2. Maybe it's like a 2 in draft, and it's like a 1 normally.
Yeah, sure.
That's not true. It's probably at least a 2 normally. There's probably like some weird like.
Yeah.
There's probably some deck that's like so good at stalling that it can actually play this.
It-
But, like,
It's hard to give something a 1 because basically I'm saying 1 is like unplayable, really, and like I don't think this card's
yeah,
unplayable.
this is gonna be two.
Sure.
Stupid card.
Leopold. I've been wanting to talk about Leopold.
Yeah, Leopold is actually a very interesting card. So this is 10 cost, 6/4 artillery, deployment, send all enemy units to their owner's hand.
There is a lot you could say about this card because it's obviously like face value tempo, but I actually think it's a board wipe. Like,
yeah, it's basically a wipe.
so here's my logic. Okay, so like if you're at 10 and you're playing like a mid-range deck, you're probably just like wanting your opponent to like stop whatever they're doing. And I've lost to this card as Russia mid-range against this card, German mid-range, because it's like we're both kind of like even, and then they play this card, and all the stuff I've done is erased. It's like all back in my hand. And then now like they're up because they have a unit in play, and I have to like now play catch up, and then they play like their normal cards that make me not draw cards, and like they just do their thing, and it's like you're behind.
6 strength artillery, so like if you play like just a few units, they can pick you off. I think this is actually pretty good.
Yeah, what you end up doing is like playing more than one unit per turn, hoping that this thing like only kills like one, and then you move the others, and you find yourself behind.
The main caveat to this though is that it costs 10, and 10 is a huge amount.
It is, but it's kind of a finisher. It's got to be played into deck with a lot of card advantage and finisher. It's a finisher.
Maybe like a 4 or something. Maybe a 3.
Sure. I also say that I play tactical strikes, and I do love when they play this and then I just tactical strike it, because but it's still I still lose those games because they start getting value on you, and it's like a great reset button.
Yeah.
So.
All right. I think that's the last one. So that was a review of the German cards. Sorry, that was long.
That took a long time.
Anticipated for this stream.
Yeah, I thought it'd take an hour.
We might have to break up the future card reviews into multiple streams, or just be faster with them. But that was the German card review. Any closing thoughts from you, Splish?
This was really fun. I love that we're in the dark with each other. I enjoy the not sure if you like it as much as I do feeling.
Yeah. We were like, there were a few disputed ones, but we were pretty lined up on these, I think.
Yeah, and we usually just nitpicked over like a 4 or 3 or whatever.
Yeah.
And you know.
All right. Well, I think that's gonna do it for this stream. We're gonna be going back later. We're gonna be giving some more of these reviews for the different factions in the game. Who is next? Next will be Britain. I don't know what the date is for the next stream, but we'll talk to each other about it, figure out when we're going to do it, and we will be back at that time with some more card reviews. And incidentally, I just want to add, while we were doing that stream, I did get these 4 Tauntaun Riders up to like almost fully base coated. So
wow.
Not only did we do that, I also made some nice modeling progress while we were doing that, for those of you who may follow Star Wars Legion.
Well done.
Thank you. All right. That's gonna basically do it for me. Splish, you got any last thoughts?
No, it was a pleasure. Good times. I hope people enjoy this. You know, I'm gonna put this on YouTube. Sploosh IRL on YouTube. That's my name, and so you know, people later on will watch this. I'm sure you know we got a few live streamers, but people in the future will see this, and I hope they enjoy it.
All right. That's going to do it for us, guys. Thanks for watching, and we will be back later with more card reviews. So thanks for watching, and see you guys sometime else.
Bye.